Welcome, dear listeners. Tonight, we travel into the twilight of what is known, into haunted paths whispered about in hushed local voices. We will journey across America to 25 places where the living fear to tread, where legends linger, shadows move just beyond the corner of your eye, and the veil between worlds feels thinnest. Prepare yourself for a tour through spectral towns, ghost lights, cursed woods, and haunted buildings, the most feared paranormal hotspots of local lore. Let your flashlight guide you, and your nerves steel themselves. For these stories are real to those who live beside them. In the heart of Philadelphia stands a relic of stone and silence, the Eastern State Penitentiary. Once hailed as a pinnacle of modern incarceration, it was built not merely to confine but to reform. Its design, a fortress of Gothic arches and endless corridors, introduced the concept of solitary confinement, a method believed to inspire repentance through isolation. From the moment its heavy iron doors opened in 1829, the penitentiary became both a marvel and a nightmare. A place where walls did more than imprison. They listened, remembered, and wept. Time has been unkind to the old prison. Its high walls, once meant to symbolize control, now crumble beneath ivy and decay. The massive cell blocks stretch like ribs of forgotten beast, each echoing faintly with sounds that defy explanation. Visitors who come seeking history often find something more, something unseen but undeniably present. The air is thick with the weight of centuries, and those who enter often say the silence feels alive, watching, breathing. The penitentiary's founders believed solitude would bring salvation. Prisoners were kept alone, their meals passed through narrow slots, their voices forbidden to touch another human ear. Days bled into nights within cramped stone cells where light filtered through small skylights, the eye of God, they called it. But for many inmates, that divine gaze became unbearable. Madness grew in the cracks of the walls, spreading quietly, unseen. Some whispered prayers into the void. Others clawed at the stone until their fingers bled. Their suffering, it seems, never truly left. Now, when the last of the daylight fades and the corridors plunge into darkness, strange things begin to stir. Guides and guests have reported the sharp clatter of footsteps echoing down empty hallways. The sound is distinct, deliberate, as if a guard still walks his nightly patrol. Yet when they follow the sound, the corridors are empty, only dust motes drifting in their flashlight beams. In cell block 12, where most disturbed inmates were once confined, visitors describe hearing distant wails, soft and sorrowful, as though the walls themselves mourn. Shadows flicker across the upper walkways, pacing behind broken bars. Some have captured faint figures on cameras, outlines that vanish as quickly as they appear. Even skeptics find themselves unsettled, glancing over their shoulders, convinced that something unseen lingers just out of reach. One of the most chilling reports comes from those who stand near the old guard tower late at night. They claim to hear the heavy clang of cell doors slamming shut, doors that have not moved in decades. Others describe disembodied voices calling names, soft whispers that seem to echo from deep within the masonry. It's as if the prison's former residents, long dead, are still answering roll call, unable to accept their release from a sentence that never truly ended. Even the air feels strange here. It's heavy, pressing down like an invisible weight. In certain hallways, guests describe a sensation of being watched from all sides, though no one is there. Some have felt cold drafts sweep past them, like a passing presence brushing their skin. A few have fainted. Others leave in tears, unable to explain why. The building, they say, seems to absorb you, your thoughts, your fear, even your breath. Every step echoes too long, as if the sound itself is reluctant to die. There are stories of the old cell once occupied by Al Capone, who served a brief sentence within these walls. Visitors claim his cell feels different from the rest, a strange pulse in the air, a lingering presence that defies time. During his stay, Capone reportedly complained of being haunted by the ghost of a man named Jimmy, a victim of one of his past crimes. Even now, some say they can hear a faint murmur within the cell, a voice whispering just beyond understanding, trapped between guilt and memory. The staff who maintain the prison today walk its halls with quiet respect. They know better than to dismiss the stories. Some have witnessed lights flicker in rooms with no electricity. Others have heard faint sobbing from empty cells late into the night. During restoration work, a construction worker once reported hearing a whispered, "Help me," from within a sealed corridor. When the wall was opened days later, nothing was found, only the cold, stagnant air of a place untouched for half a century. Eastern State Penitentiary have become one of the most haunted sites in America, drawing ghost hunters, historians, and curious souls alike. Yet beneath the legends and the fear lies something deeper, the echo of human suffering that can never quite fade. For over a century, men lived and died within these walls, their pain etched into every brick. Solitary confinement may have broken their bodies, but it also left behind a residue, a whispered despair that seeps into those who dare to listen. As night settles over the crumbling towers and empty courtyards, the penitentiary stands as both monument and tomb. The faint rustle of leaves sounds like chains dragging across the floor. The wind through shattered glass mimics the moan of distant voices. And when the moonlight spills across the cracked stone floors, it seems to awaken the shadows. Prisoners of memory still pacing, still searching for freedom they were promised but never found. Eastern State Penitentiary no longer holds the living. Yet in its silence and the rhythm of its echoes, it continues its eternal watch. A prison not for bodies, but for the ghosts of those who once begged for redemption and found only darkness. In the rolling hills of Adams, Tennessee, lies a stretch of farmland that seems ordinary at first glance. Quiet fields, scattered oaks, and a limestone cave hidden near the banks of the Red River. Yet beneath that stillness hums a story that has outlasted generations, a tale of fear and fascination that has come to define the region. It is a legend of the Bell Witch, a haunting so intense and persistent that it has become one of the most famous ghost stories in American folklore. The story begins in 1817, when John Bell, a prosperous farmer, noticed strange occurrences around his property. It started small, rustling noises outside his home, scratching sounds in the walls, and the feeling that unseen eyes followed him as he worked his fields. Soon, the disturbances grew bolder. Furniture moved on its own. Faint tapping turned into violent pounding, and disembodied voices began to echo through the house. The unseen presence introduced itself in chilling whispers as Kate, a spirit said to have a vendetta against the Bell family. The Bell Witch spoke often, mocking and threatening the family. Sometimes she sang hymns or quoted scripture, and other times she spat curses and hurled insults. Neighbors who came to help witnessed objects flying through the air, beds shaking violently, and invisible hands striking the Bell children. Betsy Bell, the family's young daughter, seemed to suffer the worst of it, pulled by her hair, slapped, and pinched by unseen forces. No matter how many prayers were said or how many ministers visited, the haunting only grew stronger. By 1820, the entity's wrath focused on John Bell himself. His health began to fail as the witch claimed she would end his life. In December that year, John Bell was found dead, and a mysterious vial of dark liquid was discovered near his bedside. When given to the family cat, the creature died instantly. The voice of Kate was heard laughing in triumph, declaring that she had finally succeeded in taking the old man's life. The haunting faded soon after, but never completely vanished. The land seemed to remember. Today, the Bell Witch Cave stands as a physical reminder of that dark legacy. The small, damp cavern rests not far from where the Bell home once stood, its narrow tunnels winding through cool limestone walls. Locals say the witch found refuge there, and some believe her presence still lingers in its depths. Those who enter describe a heavy stillness that settles around them, as though the air itself is alive. Even seasoned ghost hunters tread carefully, aware that the cave has a way of turning curiosity into fear. Visitors often report strange phenomena inside. Some hear low murmurs in the dark, words that seem to shift between English and Cherokee, though no one is ever there. Others describe seeing faint lights flickering deep within the cave, small orbs that move as if guided by unseen hands. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain, and cold spots bloom suddenly in the warm Tennessee air. Objects are said to be thrown without warning. Small rocks, pebbles, and once a man's flashlight that flew from his hand and shattered against a stone wall. A few explorers claimed they felt something brush against them, light as a spider's thread, but undeniably real. One woman swore she heard a female voice whisper directly into her ear, her breath cold and sharp. "Leave." When she turned, the tunnel was empty. Others describe a more oppressive presence. A sensation of being watched followed, studied by something that is neither friendly nor entirely human. Those who linger too long sometimes emerge with scratches on their arms or faces, though no one can explain how they were made. Some locals believe the bell, which was never merely a ghost. They speak of an ancient spirit tied to the land long before settlers arrived, perhaps something connected to the nearby burial mounds of the Cherokee. The strange voices, they say, are not echoes of the Bell family's torment, but older than the farm itself, a guardian or trickster spirit angered by intrusion. The cave, in this telling, is her dwelling place, a threshold between the human and the otherworldly. Even skeptics admit there is something unsettling about the Bell Witch Cave. The acoustics warp sound in unnatural ways. A single drip of water can echo like a whisper. The darkness is absolute, swallowing light after only a few steps. Standing at the entrance, many say they feel torn between fascination and dread. Some claim the cave's energy changes with the seasons, peaceful in winter, restless in summer, as if the spirit sleeps and wakes with the turning of the earth. Over the years, countless investigations have tried to uncover the truth behind the legend. Paranormal researchers bring recorders, infrared cameras, and motion sensors, but often leave with more questions than answers. Voices caught on tape murmur indistinctly, often repeating the same name, Betsy. Shadows move in places where no light should be. A few brave souls have camped near the mouth of the cave, only to flee before dawn, swearing they heard footsteps circling their tents, slow and deliberate. To this day, the Bell Witch remains one of Tennessee's most enduring mysteries. Whether spirit, curse, or folklore made flesh, she has become inseparable from the land itself. The fields where the Bell family once lived still hold a strange quiet, as if listening. The cave continues to draw those who dare to seek her, though most leave with the same uneasy feeling, that she is still there, waiting unseen, amused by those who come to test her patience. Rising from the icy waters of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz Island stands as a silent monument to isolation and despair. Known simply as a rock, it once held some of America's most feared criminals, men who had defied the law and, in many cases, defied every attempt to contain them. Between its thick concrete walls and rusting iron bars lies a history steeped in violence, punishment, and, according to many who have dared to spend a night there, the lingering presence of restless souls who never left. Alcatraz began as a military fort in the mid-1800s before transforming into the most notorious federal penitentiary in the United States in 1934. Its reputation for being inescapable was well earned. Surrounded by freezing currents and deadly tides, the island promised absolute confinement. Prisoners like Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, the infamous Birdman of Alcatraz, spent their days in small, damp cells that echoed with the sound of clanging doors and the hum of the wind that swept through the bay. Yet even when the prison closed in 1963, its spirit did not rest. The isolation that once defined Alcatraz seems to have seeped into its foundations, giving rise to one of the most haunted locations in America. Those who visit today often describe an atmosphere that is impossible to ignore. The air inside the old cell blocks feels heavy, as though the building itself remembers every scream, every whispered prayer, every desperate attempt to escape. The sound of dripping water and the distant crash of waves create a rhythm that amplifies the sense of being watched. Even in daylight, the prison feels alive, its long corridors stretching into shadows that seem to move when you're not looking. The most unsettling reports come from Cell Block D, the solitary confinement wing. Known among former inmates as the Hole, this section was used to punish the most defiant prisoners. The cells there were pitch black, with only a small opening for food. Men could spend days or weeks locked inside, their minds unraveling in the darkness. Visitors who step into these cells today often speak of an unnatural chill that seeps into their bones. Some have reported feeling sudden drafts of cold air, even when the doors are sealed. Others claim to have heard faint breathing beside them, or the rattle of chains dragging across the floor. One of the most famous ghost stories from Alcatraz involves a prisoner who was placed in the farthest cell of D Block in the 1940s. Guards reported hearing him scream through the night, begging for someone to let him out, claiming that something with glowing eyes was in the cell with him. By morning, he was found dead, strangled, though no one else had access to the locked room. Since then, countless visitors have felt uneasy near that particular cell. Some even say they can still hear his cries when the wind passes through the corridor at night. Tour guides and park rangers, even those who consider themselves skeptics, admit that certain parts of Alcatraz defy explanation. Footsteps echo along empty walkways. Cell doors clang shut without human touch. Voices whisper just beyond the edge of hearing. Low murmurs that seem to come from inside the walls. In the old dining hall, people have heard the faint sound of cutlery clinking, as if long-gone inmates were still gathering for a meal. The exercise yard, once filled with men pacing under the watchful eyes of guards, has its own hauntings. After nightfall, some have seen hazy figures standing near the perimeter, staring out toward the city lights of San Francisco shimmering across the bay. Others have reported shapes moving across the yard, as though the spirits of prisoners are still walking the same endless circles, waiting for a freedom they'll never find. Even the former warden's quarters are said to hold traces of the past. During a Christmas party in the 1940s, guests heard the sound of unearthly wailing coming from the prison walls. The music stopped, the laughter faded, and cold air filled the room. When guards searched, they found nothing, yet the sound returned several times that night. Modern visitors still feel uneasy there, as if unseen eyes are watching from the shadows of the old fireplace. Paranormal investigators have flocked to Alcatraz for decades, armed with cameras and recorders in hopes of capturing proof of what so many have experienced. Recordings often pick up unexplained voices, names whispered softly, cries for help, or faint laughter. In the dark corridors of D Block, electromagnetic meters spike without reason. Some photos show orbs of light or translucent figures standing in doorways. But even without equipment, most visitors agree that Alcatraz feels haunted in a way that goes beyond legend. It's as though the island itself has absorbed the pain and desperation of every man who ever lived and died there. The fog that rolls across the bay often shrouds Alcatraz, wrapping it in a ghostly veil. On those nights, when the city lights vanish and the wind moans through the old watchtowers, the island becomes something out of time. The faint clang of a metal door or the echo of distant footsteps carries across the water. Some who pass by on boats claim to see faint figures at the windows, watching silently, their faces pale against the dark. Alcatraz has been many things: fortress, prison, museum, but to those who have walked its corridors in silence, it remains something more, a place where history and the supernatural blend into one. The laughter of tourists fades quickly in its echoing halls, replaced by whispers of those who never left. The walls, damp with sea mist and memory, seem to breathe, and as the tides rise and fall around the island, they carry with them the echoes of the past, voices of men trapped not just by water and stone, but by the weight of their own ghosts. Perched atop a lonely hill in Louisville, Kentucky, Waverly Hill Sanatorium casts a long shadow over the surrounding landscape. Built in the early 20th century to treat tuberculosis, the facility was once a beacon of hope for patients suffering from the White Plague. Yet hope quickly gave way to despair. The disease was relentless, and despite the best medical care of the era, thousands of patients perished within its walls. Today, Waverly Hill stands abandoned, its windows dark and its hallways silent. Yet visitors speak of a presence that has never truly left, a lingering echo of pain, sorrow, and restless spirits. The sanatorium was designed to maximize airflow, a novel idea at the time, with long corridors and large windows meant to bring in sunlight and fresh air. Patients were confined in small rooms, often isolated from one another, their coughs and labored breaths filling the hallways. The death toll was staggering. During its peak, the hospital sometimes lost dozens of patients in a single week. The building's infamous body chute, a tunnel used to discreetly transport deceased patients to waiting hearses, earned a grim reputation among staff and locals alike. Whispers circulated that the tunnel itself absorbed the anguish of those who passed through, leaving an invisible residue of grief. Now, decades after the last patient left, the halls of Waverly Hills still resonate with the memories of those who suffered and died there. Visitors described walking through the abandoned wards and hearing faint moans, soft at first, then growing louder, echoing off the peeling walls. Some report the unmistakable sound of coughing, punctuated by the scrape of shoes on the linoleum floors. Even when the building is empty, shadowy figures appear at windows or in the corners of long hallways, vanishing when approached, leaving behind a chill that sinks into the bones. The third floor, once a quarantine ward for the most infectious patients, is said to be particularly active. Guests exploring the darkened corridors speak of feeling unseen hands graze their shoulders or tug at their clothing. Some claim to hear whispers, fragmented and incomprehensible, carried on a cold breeze that seems to appear from nowhere. A few have reported sudden, oppressive feelings of dread, as if the building itself is warning them to leave. The air is heavy with the weight of suffering, thick with a palpable sadness that makes every step forward feel like intrusion into someone else's nightmare. In the operating rooms, where desperate medical attempts were made to save lives, residual energy manifests differently. Visitors have reported lights flickering on and off, doors swinging open on their own, and a sense of being watched by something unseen. One paranormal investigator described an overwhelming sensation of heat in a room that should have been freezing, followed by the feeling of being pushed lightly from behind. Security footage has occasionally captured fleeting shadows crossing hallways, or dark shapes that vanish when approached. The body chute remains one of Waverly Hills' most notorious locations. Originally designed to carry corpses out of sight of patients, the tunnel is narrow, claustrophobic, and lined with heavy stone. Those who enter report a sudden drop in temperature, a weight in the chest, and whispers that seem to echo from the very walls. Some hear faint crying, others hear footsteps behind them, though the tunnel is empty. Paranormal enthusiasts often describe this space as a vortex of energy, a place where the despair of the past collides with the presence of the living. Even the outside grounds seem touched by the building's dark legacy. At dusk, shadows move across the fog-shrouded hill, often too fluid to be the work of trees or mist. Guests walking the perimeter report seeing fleeting figures near the windows or along the paths, sometimes appearing to glance directly at them before disappearing. On certain nights, the wind carries sounds that are almost human, coughing, whispering, or soft laughter, but with an eerie, unnatural quality that makes it impossible to locate the source. Those who have stayed overnight at Waverly Hills recount experiences that defy rational explanation. Objects shift inexplicably, doors slam in empty rooms, footsteps echo in patterns that mimic the walking of someone unseen. Some have woken to find shadowy figures standing at the foot of their beds, vanishing when they move or call out. Others describe the sensation of being followed through hallways, only to find themselves alone when they turn. Even skeptics often leave uneasy, acknowledging the pervasive sense of presence that lingers long after they depart. Locals have long whispered that Waverly Hills is more than a haunted building, that it is a vortex of residual tragedy, a place where the pain, fear, and desperation of decades past have fused into something tangible. The combination of untold deaths, prolonged suffering, and isolation seems to have left a mark on the structure itself. To walk its hallways is to step into a space where the boundary between the living and the dead feels fragile, where the echoes of the past press against the present, demanding recognition. Though the sanatorium now attracts tourists, ghost hunters, and curious adventurers, the building refuses to reveal all its secrets. Some nights remain quiet, with only the wind and the occasional owl breaking the silence. Other nights, however, are alive with the sound of the past, moans from empty rooms, whispers from dark corners in the cold, watching presence that seems to follow every step. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, once a place of attempted healing, now stands as a monument to suffering, a house that remembers, and a reminder that some tragedies leave marks that time alone cannot erase. Nestled in the rolling hills of San Jose, California, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a testament to obsession, grief, and the strange intersection of architecture and the supernatural. Built over 40 years by Sarah Winchester, the widow of the inventor of the Winchester rifle, the mansion is a sprawling labyrinth of hallways, staircases, and rooms that defy logic. Doors open into walls. Staircases ascend to ceilings, and windows peer into spaces that seem to exist for no reason at all. Every corner of the house carries a sense of unease, as though it was constructed not for comfort, but to confound something unseen. Sarah Winchester began her extraordinary building project in 1884 after the deaths of her husband and infant daughter. Overwhelmed by grief, she reportedly consulted a medium who told her she was haunted by the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles. The medium warned that she and her family would be cursed unless she continuously expanded her home, constructing it to confuse and placate restless spirits. What followed was decades of relentless construction, with work continuing day and night through fires, earthquakes, and personal hardship. By the time of her death in 1922, the mansion had grown into a sprawling, 7-story maze of more than 160 rooms, filled with strange features that defy architectural logic. Visitors to the mansion often describe an immediate sensation of disorientation. Hallways twist and turn unexpectedly, doors open to reveal walls or staircases that lead nowhere. Windows look into rooms on the same floor or an entirely different story. The building seems alive, deliberately designed to confound not only intruders, but anyone who dares walk its corridors. Even modern construction teams and historians admit that the house's layout is confusing beyond reason, leaving many convinced that Sarah Winchester was guided by a purpose that transcended normal architecture. It is in this maze that the mansion's reputation for the paranormal was born. Numerous reports over the years describe sounds that cannot be explained by its creaking wooden floors or the California wind. Footsteps echo along hallways when no one else is present. Doors open and close on their own, sometimes with a heavy slam that reverberates through the house. Visitors have heard disembodied voices, whispering names or short phrases that vanish as quickly as they appear. Some claim the air grows suddenly cold, sending chills down their spines even on the warmest days. The mansion is also filled with stories of children's laughter, heard in rooms that appear abandoned. Paranormal investigators frequently report the sounds of play, giggles, running footsteps, or faint cries, echoing through corridors where no one is present. Some have caught these sounds on audio recordings, but when they rush to the source, they find only empty rooms, dimly lit and eerily silent. Others have described shadows flitting across stairways or appearing from corners, just beyond the reach of their flashlight beams. The house's architectural oddities themselves add to its eerie atmosphere. Spiral staircases lead to ceilings, and trapdoors drop into hidden shafts. Doors open to rooms already visible through a nearby window, and some hallways seem to bend in impossible ways, making it difficult to tell where one floor ends and another begins. Some floors feature windows placed at irregular heights, or rooms with multiple doors that lead only to narrow closets or voids. Guests frequently report a dizzying sense of spatial dislocation, as though the house has its own rules of geometry, its own logic meant to confuse and entrap. Several paranormal investigations have captured unexplained phenomena. Cameras have recorded faint orbs of light drifting through hallways, and temperature readings often drop sharply in certain rooms without explanation. Investigators have recorded faint whispering, sometimes repeating words like "help me" or calling out names. Some visitors describe a feeling of being watched, an oppressive presence that seems to move through the walls, pacing behind doors and staircases just out of sight. These experiences are often strongest in the upper floors, where the original construction efforts were most intense, and where hidden rooms remain locked from the public. Even employees of the house report experiences that defy explanation. Tour guides speak of objects moving slightly from their positions, lights flickering, or sudden cold spots that appear along hallways. Some describe hearing footsteps when the corridors are empty or glimpsing fleeting figures that disappear when looked at directly. One guide recalls feeling a hand on her shoulder while walking alone, yet no one else was nearby. These experiences reinforce the mansion's reputation as a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels particularly thin. Visitors today are drawn not only to the house's architectural wonders, but also to the chilling aura that permeates every room. As the sun sets behind the Santa Cruz Mountains, shadows stretch across staircases and hallways, the mansion taking on an even more ghostly aspect. Windows reflect light in ways that make it seem as though someone is watching from within. The winding corridors carry sounds from distant rooms, footsteps and whispers that seem to come from nowhere, yet echo with a strange familiarity. The Winchester Mystery House remains, more than a century after Sarah Winchester's death, a symbol of grief turned into obsession, a monument of fear, and a labyrinth haunted by those it was designed to shelter and confuse. For those who wander its corridors, the house is not merely a building but a living entity, filled with echoes of the past. Footsteps, voices, laughter, and shadows continue to haunt the rooms, a reminder that some construction is meant not for the living, but for the spirits that will never leave. As night falls over San Jose, the mansion waits, endlessly growing in legend and mystery, a place where the line between reality and the supernatural is as twisted as its endless stairways. Francisville, Louisiana, surrounded by moss-draped oak trees and quiet, winding roads, stands Myrtle's Plantation, a stately antebellum mansion steeped in beauty, history, and legend. Built in 1796, the plantation has long been whispered to sit atop an ancient Native American burial ground, a resting place that some believe imbues the property with restless energy. Over the centuries, Myrtle's has earned a reputation that draws thrill seekers, paranormal investigators, and history enthusiasts alike. It is often called the most haunted house in America. Those who enter often leave changed, reporting experiences that cannot be explained by logic alone. The mansion is striking at first glance. Its wide front porch stretches across the facade, with French doors opening onto sunlit rooms, high ceilings, and grand chandeliers. But beneath the elegance lies a sense of unease, a quiet tension that seems to seep from the walls themselves. Visitors often report feeling watched the moment they step onto grounds. The air seems heavier, and shadows move in ways that defy natural light. Some guests have felt sudden chills, as though invisible hands brushed across their skin, or heard soft footsteps following them down the hall when no one else is present. Myrtle's is said to host at least 12 spirits, each with a story tied to tragedy, betrayal, or untimely death. One of the most famous is Chloe, a former enslaved woman who, according to legend, was caught attempting to poison a family and subsequently died on the property. Chloe is described as wearing a green turban, and many claim to see her wander in the hallways or appearing in photographs as a faint figure in the background. Some visitors report feeling a cold presence or seeing her face reflected in mirrors, watching silently from the edges of their vision. Children's laughter is another common occurrence. Guests often hear the sound of tiny footsteps running across the floors, soft giggles drifting through rooms, or doors opening as if a playful spirit is inviting them to follow. Yet when visitors look for the source, the rooms are empty. Some say these are the echoes of children who lived and died on the plantation long ago, their energy trapped in the home's timeless corridors. These sounds often emerge in the evenings, when the sun dips behind the oak trees and shadows stretch across the ornate furniture. Windows and doors in the plantation have a tendency to move on their own. Visitors have reported windows swinging open in locked rooms, doors closing without human touch, and objects shifting slightly as though nudged by unseen hands. Paranormal investigators have captured unexplained images of lights floating in hallways and shadowy figures appearing and disappearing in photographs. Some cameras record misty shapes hovering near ceilings, while audio devices capture soft whispers or murmurs in the darkness. These phenomena occur throughout the house, from the grand parlor to the narrow servants' quarters, reinforcing the sense that the entire plantation is alive with unseen activity. The history of Myrtle's is steeped in sorrow and mystery, adding to a feeling of lingering spirits. Over the years, Deaths on the property, from accidents, illnesses, and violence, have accumulated, leaving a legacy of grief. Some rooms, like the old dining hall and the upstairs bedrooms, are particularly active, with visitors often reporting sudden drops in temperature, flickering lights, or the sensation of being touched. Those who stay overnight sometimes wake to find their hair pulled, blankets tugged, or the feeling of an unseen presence hovering near their bed. Even the exterior of the plantation carries an eerie charm. The sprawling grounds, lined with ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss, seem to shift as the wind moves through them, creating shadows that mimic human forms. Walkways creak under invisible footsteps, and the distant sound of singing or humming has been reported during quiet nights. Some visitors have claimed to see figures peering from upper-story windows, only to vanish when approached, leaving the glass empty and the air still. Paranormal investigators and skeptics alike often struggle to explain the experiences at Myrtles. Cameras capture shapes that vanish upon closer inspection. Audio devices pick up voices repeating names or phrases, and temperature readings fluctuate inexplicably. The plantation's thick walls seem to amplify these effects, making ordinary sounds eerie and ordinary movements appear supernatural. Even those who enter with disbelief often leave with a newfound respect for the mansion's mysterious energy. Myrtle's plantation remains a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. The echoes of the past, children playing, servants moving through halls, tragic figures wandering endlessly, seem to linger in every corner, every doorway, every shadow. It is a place that reminds visitors that some spaces carry memory and emotion in ways that are palpable, that walls can absorb grief, and that certain tragedies refuse to fade with time. Today, the mansion continues to attract curious minds and daring souls. Guests tour its ornate rooms, walk its shadowed halls, and explore the stories of the many who once lived and died there. And while some enter hoping for history, many leave with the undeniable sense that Myrtle's plantation is more than a house. It is a vessel of memories, a crucible of sorrow, and a home to spirits who have never truly departed. At night, when the moonlight filters through the trees and the air grows still, the laughter of children and the soft footsteps of unseen guests remind all who dare to enter that the legends of Myrtles are alive, enduring, and waiting. Perched on a hilltop overlooking the rugged beauty of Estes Park, Colorado, the Stanley Hotel has long been a destination for travelers seeking luxury, history, and, for those daring enough, the paranormal. Built in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley, the hotel's grand architecture and panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains make it a sight to behold. Yet beyond its elegance lies a legacy of unexplained phenomena, a reputation that earned it a place in pop culture as the inspiration for Stephen King's The Shining. Today, the Stanley Hotel draws thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and curious visitors from around the world, all hoping to experience its lingering mysteries firsthand. The hotel's history is steeped in stories of the unusual and the uncanny. Guests often report experiencing strange occurrences almost immediately upon entering. Hallways are said to be alive with movement when no one is present, and the faint scent of perfume or cigar smoke sometimes drifts through empty corridors. Lights flicker without cause, casting long shadows that seem to dance along the walls. Doors open and close on their own, sometimes shutting with sharp click, as though unseen hands are moving through the building. One of the most famous sightings is that of a woman in white, said to roam the upper floors of the hotel. Guests describe glimpsing her figure at the end of the hallway, or through the crack of a doorway, wearing a flowing gown and exuding a sense of sorrow. Some report hearing her footsteps following them down the corridor, echoing softly over the polished floors. Others claim she vanishes when approached, leaving only a cold spot where her presence lingered. The woman in white has become one of the enduring legends of the Stanley, symbolizing both elegance and unease. The Stanley Hotel is also alive with sounds that defy explanation. The piano in the music room and the grand ballrooms occasionally plays itself, the keys moving as if touched by invisible fingers. Visitors have reported hearing full melodies, ranging from soft classical pieces to lively ragtime, echoing through the empty halls. Guests staying nearby have recounted waking to the sound of music drifting under their door, only to find a room empty and the instrument untouched. The Overlook Bar, a favorite gathering place, is said to host full-scale apparitions, figures appearing as though waiting for a drink or conversation, disappearing when anyone approaches. Some rooms of the hotel seem particularly sensitive to these phenomena. Room 217, made famous by Stephen King's stay, is notorious for ghostly activity. Guests have reported items moving on their own, sudden cold drafts, and the sensation of being watched while lying in bed. Lights flicker and TVs turn on and off, while shadows appear to move independently of the room's furnishings. Those who spend the night often speak of an oppressive, yet oddly inviting, energy, as though the hotel itself is alive, observing and interacting with its visitors. The ballroom and dining areas are also known for paranormal activity. Chandelier lights occasionally sway even when there is no breeze, and the sound of footsteps crossing the polished floors has been reported when the spaces are empty. Staff and visitors alike have spoken of seeing figures dressed in early 20th century attire, moving gracefully across the ballroom, disappearing as soon as someone turns to get a closer look. The combination of the hotel's historic elegance and the presence of these unexplained figures creates an atmosphere where time seems to blur and the past and present coexist. Paranormal investigators frequently visit the Stanley, drawn by the combination of documented sightings and the hotel's storied history. Equipment often records temperature drops, electromagnetic fluctuations, and unexplained sounds. Cameras capture fleeting shadows or orbs of light that appear to move independently of any natural source. Audio devices pick up whispers, soft conversations, or footsteps echoing down empty hallways. Despite extensive investigation, no single explanation has emerged, leaving the experiences as enigmatic and compelling as the hotel itself. Even staff members report strange occurrences. Housekeepers describe objects that shift or vanish without explanation, luggage appearing in rooms that were previously empty, and sudden cold spots in otherwise warm hallways. Security personnel recount hearing footsteps behind them while patrolling deserted corridors, and a few have witnessed figures standing in doorways or at the tops of staircases before fading from view. These experiences are so common that long-term employees often accept them as part of the hotel's character, a unique feature that has become inseparable from its identity. Visitors to the Stanley often speak of the energy as palpable. The air feels heavier in some hallways, lighter in others, and certain rooms seem to hum with unseen activity. Guests report the sensation of being accompanied by invisible presences, feeling as though someone is watching over their shoulder or pacing alongside them as they walk. The combination of flickering lights, disembodied music, and ghostly figures creates an experience that is both thrilling and unsettling, leaving an impression that lingers long after departure. Despite the reports of paranormal activity, the Stanley Hotel continues to welcome visitors from around the world, drawn by its beauty, history, and reputation for the unexplained. The juxtaposition of luxury and haunting creates a unique atmosphere, one that invites curiosity while stirring the imagination. As the Rocky Mountain sunsets cast long shadows across its grand facades, the hotel stands not just as a historic landmark, but as a place where the line between the living and the spectral is thin, and where the echoes of the past continue to resonate. The Stanley Hotel remains a destination where the thrill of the unknown is just as compelling as the panoramic views, a place where flickering lights, phantom piano melodies, and the woman in white continue to captivate and haunt those who enter its storied halls. Rolling hills and open fields stretch across Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a landscape that today seems serene and timeless. Yet beneath the tranquility lies a history soaked in blood, fire, and human suffering. In July of 1863, these fields became the site of one of the deadliest battles in American history. Over 3 days, more than 50,000 soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing, and the echoes of their struggle have never truly left the land. Visitors who walk the battlefields today often speak of an uneasy feeling, a sense that the past is alive and watching, that Gettysburg refuses to forget the horrors that unfolded here. The terrain itself seems haunted by memory. Rolling hills rise and fall, dotted with oak trees that have witnessed more than a century of change. Old cannons, some rusted and broken, rest among the grass, silent reminders of the violence that once erupted across these fields. Yet many who visit report hearing sounds that should not exist, distant cannon blasts echoing faintly, the crack of rifle fire, or the muted cries of men caught in the chaos of battle. These sounds are fleeting, often appearing when the wind shifts or the sun dips behind the horizon, and vanish as quickly as they arrive. Phantom soldiers are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Witnesses speak of misty figures marching in formation, their uniforms distinctly Union blue or Confederate gray. Some appear to be practicing drills, while others seem frozen in moments of panic or injury. Visitors have described seeing them in the early morning fog, their forms blurred but unmistakable, moving with purpose yet disconnected from the modern world. Cameras occasionally capture faint images of these apparitions, and some infrared readings have recorded heat signatures where no living being stands. The battlefields themselves seem to preserve the energy of conflict. Certain locations, Little Round Top, Cemetery Ridge, and Pickett's Charge, are said to be particularly active. Guests often report hearing shouts, commands, and even the clash of swords in areas where no reenactment or tourist activity is taking place. Shadows shift across the fields as though soldiers are moving through them, and some visitors swear they have felt the brush of an unseen hand, the vibration of boots marching across the ground beneath them. Ghostly cavalry is another frequent report. On quiet evenings, some claim to hear the thundering of hooves, the clatter of sabers, and the creak of leather harnesses. When they look, the fields appear empty, yet the sounds persist, fading only when the witness retreats or turns away. Others describe fleeting glimpses of mounted soldiers, transparent but fully formed, riding along old roads that once carried the armies to their positions. These experiences create an uncanny sensation of time folding in upon itself, where the past and present exist side by side. Even the monuments and markers erected after the war do not deter the lingering spirits. Bronze statues of officers, cannon placements, and plaques commemorating regiments are often the sites of unexplained activity. Visitors have reported lights flickering around these memorials, shadows crossing in unnatural patterns, and a persistent smell of gunpowder on the air. Some have claimed to hear whispered conversations, as if the soldiers are discussing tactics, mourning comrades, or simply trying to reconcile with the events that unfolded here. Nightfall seems to heighten the activity. As the sun sets and the mist rises from the fields, many witnesses report an overwhelming feeling of presence, a heaviness that presses down on the shoulders and chest. Footsteps can be heard across empty roads, and the faint clang of metal muskets, sabers, and cannons echoes in the darkness. A few overnight visitors and campers in the area have described waking to the distant sound of bugle calls or the distant murmur of troops moving into position. The experience is vivid enough to unsettle even the most skeptical observers. The cemetery at Gettysburg, which became a resting place for thousands of Union soldiers, is no less active. In quiet moments, some have reported seeing figures kneeling or tending to graves, their forms partially transparent, their gestures deliberate and solemn. The ground seems to hum with memory, as though the departed refuse to be ignored. Even when visitors attempt to remain detached, there is a sense that the weight of history presses upon them, a reminder that these fields were once a crucible of sacrifice and horror. Paranormal investigators and historians alike have tried to understand the phenomena of Gettysburg. Cameras capture orbs, misty shapes, and figures that disappear when approached. Audio devices sometimes pick up distant gunfire, marching, or commands. Even skeptics note that the energy of the land is different here, as though the soil itself has absorbed the collective trauma of thousands of men fighting and dying over 3 relentless days. It is not simply a place of memory. It is a place where memory persists, refusing to fade into history. Visitors today are drawn to Gettysburg for both its history and its hauntings. Walking the fields, standing atop hills where generals once surveyed their troops, or following trails where soldiers once marched, one cannot help but feel the presence of the past. Mist rises from the grass, wind whispers through the trees, and shadows move just beyond the eye's focus. Here, the blood, sweat, and sorrow of 1863 have not been erased. The land remembers, and those who tread upon it may catch a fleeting glimpse of history still alive, the phantom marching soldiers. The echo of cannon fire and the ghostly cries that linger, a haunting testament to Gettysburg's enduring legacy. In the historic town of Salem, Massachusetts, the events of 1692 cast a long and haunting shadow, one that continues to linger in the streets, buildings, and burial grounds over 3 centuries later. Salem is often celebrated for its colonial charm, cobblestone streets, and preserved 17th century architecture. But beneath its quaint exterior lies a legacy of fear, accusation, and death. The Salem witch trials left an indelible mark on the town, and many visitors report experiences that suggest the past is far from gone. Walking through Salem at night, exploring the witch house, or visiting the old burying point, one can feel the weight of history pressing in, and sometimes the whispers of the past can be heard. The old burying point cemetery is one of the oldest landmarks in Salem, dating back to 1637. Beneath its weathered headstones lie the remains of those accused, imprisoned, or executed during the height of the witch trials. Some visitors speak of an eerie stillness here, a quiet that is almost too heavy to bear. Footsteps crunch across the gravel paths, yet the source is often unseen. Others report sudden chills, icy drafts that snake along the nape of the neck even on warm summer nights. Some say the spirits of the executed, like Bridget Bishop, the first woman hanged, still wander the grounds, restless and watching, waiting for recognition that history has now given them. The witch house, the only structure still standing in Salem with direct ties to the trials, exudes an unsettling energy. Once home to Judge Jonathan Corwin, one of the magistrates who presided over the hearings, the house preserves the aura of judgment and suspicion. Visitors often describe cold spots in corners, doors creaking open when no one is near, and shadows moving along hallways that seem to have a life of their own. Some have claimed to hear whispers echoing through the rooms, accusatory voices muttering names, or fragments of the trial proceedings, as if the walls themselves remember the fear and hysteria that once filled them. Walking the narrow streets of Salem at night can be an experience that blends history with the supernatural. Gas lamps cast long, flickering shadows, and the clapboard houses seem to lean in closer, listening. Passers-by have reported hearing distant voices, accusing them of crimes they did not commit, or feeling the brush of invisible fingers trailing along their spine as they pass empty doorways. Some hear hurried footsteps behind them, quick and uneven, but when they turn, the street is empty. Others describe a sudden heaviness, a sensation that something unseen is walking beside them, keeping pace, observing and judging. Many of the accounts center on the lingering presence of those who suffered unjustly during the trials. Spectral figures, often seen in colonial garb, are reported peering from windows or standing in doorways. Some are fleeting, vanishing when approached, while others seem more solid, lingering long enough for witnesses to feel a palpable sense of sorrow or anger emanating from them. Children, in particular, are said to be sensitive to this energy, sometimes pointing to unseen figures or pausing mid-step, staring at walls as if watching something invisible move through the air. Paranormal investigators who have explored Salem's historic sites frequently record unexplained phenomena. Audio devices sometimes pick up faint whispers, murmurs, or fragments of old court proceedings. Cameras occasionally capture shadowy figures or unexplained orbs drifting through hallways and graveyards. Temperature readings often fluctuate dramatically in locations tied to the trials, dropping suddenly even on warm days, or giving a sensation of icy air that seems to follow visitors. Even skeptics often report feeling watched or sensing an oppressive presence that defies explanation. The atmosphere in Salem is heightened during anniversaries of the trials, particularly around late October, when the air carries a crisp chill and the town becomes quiet after dark. Guided tours frequently report guests feeling sudden shivers, hearing soft cries in the distance, or experiencing a weight pressing on their shoulders. Some say the spirits of the accused still replay their trials, trapped in the moments of fear and accusation that define their final days. The combination of architecture, history, and tragedy seems to have created a kind of echo, a resonance that allows the past to bleed into the present. Even those who visit during daylight hours can feel the lingering energy. Walking through historic cemeteries, peering into the witch house, or following the original streets where judges and accusers once passed, some report an overwhelming sense of being watched. Photographs occasionally show faint outlines of figures that were not visible to the eye, or misty shapes hovering near headstones. The air seems to carry the weight of accusation, grief, and injustice, a palpable reminder of the hysteria that consumed an entire town. Salem's legacy is not only historical, but spectral. The town has embraced its past, offering museums, tours, and reenactments, yet the supernatural claims continue to intrigue. Many who walk the streets or explore the historic sites leave with an awareness that the shadows of 1692 remain, subtly threading to the fabric of the town. The old burying point, the witch house, and the narrow streets themselves seem to hold memory, a lingering presence that reminds visitors that the fear, sorrow, and injustice of Salem witch trials are never truly gone. The whispers, the chills, and the fleeting shadows all serve as silent testimony. The ground here remembers, and those who suffered may still walk unseen, keeping the past alive in the present. Stretching across southern New Jersey, the Pine Barrens is a vast and shadowed wilderness, a land of dense forests, tangled undergrowth, and dark, murky swamps. For centuries, it has captured the imagination of explorers, settlers, and storytellers alike. Its dense canopy and endless trails hiding secrets that seem to resist the intrusion of modern civilization. Beneath its moss-draped trees and winding streams lies a world that is part natural beauty, part enduring nightmare, a place where the ordinary and the supernatural collide, and where the legends of the Jersey Devil and countless other mysteries have thrived for generations. The Jersey Devil is perhaps the most infamous inhabitant of the Barrens, a creature said to stalk the forest with leathery wings, hoof feet, and a chilling, almost human scream. According to legend, the devil was born to a local family in the 18th century and cursed to roam the Barrens forever. Locals describe hearing its cries echoing through the trees on cold, misty nights, a sound that freezes the blood and warns even the bravest travelers to stay away. Some claim to have seen a shadowy figure dart between trees, moving impossibly fast, while others report glowing eyes staring from the darkness, vanishing the moment they focus on it. Sightings are rare, but the stories are relentless, and the fear of the unknown persists in every corner of the forest. But the Jersey Devil is not the only legend that haunts these woods. The Pine Barrens is home to tales of phantom towns, communities that appear on maps yet vanish when approached. Travelers have reported stumbling upon roads and clearings that seem perfectly normal at first, only to find that no path leads out, and the area appears to shift around them as if the forest itself is alive. Some swear they have seen the flickering lights of a town in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys, or hear the laughter of children playing in abandoned streets. Yet when they reach the location, there is nothing but trees and fog. Lost travelers are another recurring story. Hikers, campers, and hunters sometimes disappear for hours or days, only to return without memory of their ordeal, or occasionally never return at all. Those who survive recount strange occurrences, compasses spinning wildly, footsteps echoing in directions where no one else is, and the oppressive feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. The Barrens seems to have a way of disorienting those who venture too far, turning familiar landmarks into treacherous illusions, and luring the unwary deeper into its heart. The forest itself amplifies these sensations. Thick pine and cedar limit visibility, while the low-lying mist from the swamps creeps along the ground, giving the landscape a dreamlike, sometimes nightmarish quality. Shadows seem to move in the corner of one's vision, and ordinary sounds, the snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, can take on sinister significance. At night, the wind whistles through the trees in a way that mimics whispers or cries, and the reflection of moonlight off stagnant water creates illusions that resemble eyes watching from the darkness. Many visitors admit that even the sunlight does little to dispel the feeling that the forest is alive and aware. In addition to the myths of the Jersey Devil and phantom towns, the Barrens has long been associated with smuggling, hidden treasure, and outlaw activity. During colonial times, residents used its dense cover to hide goods and evade authorities. Tales of hidden caches, secret tunnels, and abandoned cabins still circulate, and some claim these locations are haunted by those who perished or were betrayed, their spirits lingering to guard the secrets they once protected. Explorers who stumble upon these ruins sometimes hear voices calling from empty rooms, doors opening by themselves, or the sensation of a presence brushing past them in narrow passageways. Paranormal investigators and enthusiasts frequently explore the Pine Barrens, drawn by its history and reputation. Audio recorders have picked up unexplainable sounds, hooves striking the ground, low growls, or cries that resemble human wailing. Cameras occasionally capture fleeting figures or glowing orbs among the trees, while temperature sensors record sudden drops even on warm days. Some researchers swear they have seen the silhouette of the Jersey Devil perched on a branch, wings folded, before it vanishes like smoke in morning light. These encounters, while rare, contribute to the Barrens' reputation as a place where the veil between the natural and supernatural is thin. Even local residents speak of strange phenomena. Hunters, campers, and those who live near the forest's edge recount unusual lights moving through the woods at night, sounds of animals where none should be, and the eerie sensation of being followed when venturing into the shadowed paths. Stories passed down through generations warn of avoiding the deeper parts of the Barrens after sunset, lest one encounter the Jersey Devil, a phantom town, or something far stranger lurking in the mist. Despite its dangers, the Pine Barrens continues to draw visitors, those seeking adventure, thrill, or a brush with legend. Walking its trails, crossing its swamps, and listening to the wind through the towering pines, one cannot escape the feeling that the forest remembers every story, every scream, and every step of those who entered before. The Jersey Devil may or may not appear, phantom towns may or may not materialize, but the Barrens is always watching, always shifting, always waiting. In this forest, reality and legend blur, and those who venture too deeply may feel the pull of a world that refuses to let go of its secrets. A wilderness where shadows move, cries echo, and the dark heart of New Jersey whispers its warnings to all who dare to enter. Across the United States, certain places seem to hum with a presence that transcends time, a lingering echo of tragedy, fear, or unexplained mystery. Among the most infamous are 10 sites that have captured the imaginations of ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and those simply drawn to the unknown. From the icy corridors of Alcatraz to the shadowed trails of New Jersey's Pine Barrens, these locations form a cross-country tapestry of haunting, each site telling its own story, yet bound by a shared sense of the supernatural. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Eastern State Penitentiary rises like a fortress of sorrow. Once the most expensive prison of its era, its high walls and spoke cell blocks were designed to reform, but instead became a monument to isolation. Visitors report footsteps echoing through empty halls, distant wails from solitary cells, and shadows pacing behind barred windows. Doors slam on their own, voices call names long dead, and the air carries a heavy weight of decades of anguish. The building itself seems to absorb the memories of suffering, offering a chilling welcome to all who enter. In rural Tennessee, the bell which legend lingers like a whisper among the trees. From 1817 to 1821, the Bell family endured torment at the hands of an unseen entity named Kate. Furniture moved without contact. Threats were whispered in the night, and shadowy faces appeared in corners of rooms. Today, the cave that bears her name draws explorers and ghost hunters who report objects thrown by unseen hands, voices in old Cherokee tongues, and the persistent sensation of being watched by something not quite human. The land itself seems alive, holding the story of a family haunted beyond imagination. Off the coast of San Francisco, Alcatraz Island looms over the bay. Once home to America's most dangerous criminals, the infamous Rock conceals stories of desperation and death behind its barred windows and fog-enshrouded walkways. Visitors and overnight guests hear voices behind cell walls, footsteps in empty halls, and cold spots in solitary confinement. Spectral figures are said to pace the exercise yard at night, repeating patterns of life they were denied in the living world. Even after the prison closed, the energy of confinement and suffering seems to linger, waiting for those bold enough to enter. In Louisville, Kentucky, Waverly Hill Sanatorium sits atop a lonely hill, a crucible of human suffering. Built to treat tuberculosis, the hospital saw thousands perish under its roof. Today, ghostly moans drift from abandoned wards, Shadowy figures peer from darkened windows, and unseen hands brush shoulders in the hallways. Visitors feel the weight of despair in every corner, a heavy reminder of lives lost and a tragedy that refuses to fade with time. The building itself feels sentient, a vessel for the anguish it has witnessed. California's Winchester Mystery House is a labyrinth of confusion and grief. Constructed by Sarah Winchester over decades, it contains doors that open into walls, staircases to nowhere, and rooms that defy logic. Visitors hear footsteps in empty halls, disembodied voices, and the laughter of children echoing from hidden corners. The mansion seems designed not just as shelter, but to protect and confuse, a structure built to appease restless spirits while ensnaring the living in its impossible geometry. Myrtle's plantation in Louisiana is draped in moss and legend, said to be built atop an ancient burial ground. It hosts at least 12 spirits. Shadowy figures peer from curtains, doors open on their own, and the laughter of children drifts through empty rooms. The plantation is a crossroads of grief and energy, where the stories of those who lived and died here remain palpable, keeping the past alive in every hallway and courtyard. Colorado's Stanley Hotel, perched above Estes Park, is famous as the inspiration for The Shining, but it has its own hauntings. Guests report flickering lights, piano melodies played by unseen hands, and the woman in white walking the halls. In the overlooked bar and the grand ballroom, apparitions appear and vanish, echoing the hotel's century-long history. Visitors leave feeling observed, as if the hotel itself remembers every event and every guest who has passed through its corridors. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, is a landscape soaked in history and blood. The fields where Union and Confederate soldiers clashed are said to carry the echoes of battle. Phantom marching soldiers appear in the mist, rifle shots ring out in the distance, and shadowy figures move along ridges and hills. Even the monuments and markers of the cemetery seem to host lingering energy, reminding visitors that the ground itself refuses to forget the sacrifice and horror of 1863. In Salem, Massachusetts, the shadow of the 1692 witch trials lingers. The old burying point, the witch house, and the narrow colonial streets are alive with memory. Visitors report whispers of accusation, icy fingers tracing their spine, and fleeting figures in colonial garb. The town holds a fear, grief, and hysteria of a community gripped by paranoia, leaving a residue that can be felt in every creaking floorboard and gaslit alley. Finally, the Pine Barrens of New Jersey are a wilderness that seems to straddle reality and legend. Dense forests, tangled undergrowth, and dark swamps hide both history and myth. The Jersey Devil is said to stalk these woods, its shriek cutting through the fog. Locals report phantom towns, lost travelers, and shadows moving just beyond sight. The Barrens are alive, part natural wonder, part nightmare, where every path could lead deeper into mystery and the unknown. These 10 locations alone form a cross-country journey through fear, history, and the unexplained. But the list stretches far beyond them, into towns and forests, cemeteries and battlefields, abandoned hospitals and remote caves, places where locals tread lightly even on calm days. Each carries its own story, a memory of tragedy or unexplained phenomena, a thread in the intricate web of America's haunted landscape. Across mountains, rivers, and forests, the country is dotted with spaces that refuse to forget, where the past continues to whisper, watch, and sometimes reach out, reminding all who venture there that the supernatural is never far from the surface, waiting quietly in the shadows. Rising from the rolling hills of West Virginia, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum stands as a testament to both human ambition and human suffering. Born in 1864, this massive Gothic structure was intended to be a sanctuary for the mentally ill, a place of treatment and care in an era when understanding of mental health was rudimentary at best. Instead, it became a place where thousands endured confinement, neglect, and despair. Its walls, stretching over 7 sprawling wings, have absorbed the echoes of countless lives, some marked by tragedy, others by torment. Today, the asylum stands abandoned in parts, a chilling relic where history and horror seem to intertwine, drawing tourists paranormal investigators and thrill seekers alike. Walking through the asylum, the sheer scale of the building is immediately overwhelming. Visitors describe a sense of oppressive stillness, a quiet that feels unnatural, as if the building itself is holding its breath. The air is thick, carrying with it a faint scent of age, dust, and something harder to find, a lingering residue of sorrow. It is this atmosphere that sets the stage for the experiences that so many have reported over years. Phantom children are among the most frequently encountered entities in the asylum. Guests and investigators have reported hearing small footsteps echoing across empty hallways, the patter of tiny hands tapping on walls, or the soft giggle of children in rooms that no longer house anyone. Some claim to see fleeting figures dart past their peripheral vision, only to vanish when they look directly. In the padded rooms, designed to prevent self-harm, these manifestations often appear most strongly. Shadows shift along the walls, and some visitors swear that the faint shape of a small figure can be seen crouched in a corner, rocking gently before disappearing into nothingness. Disembodied screams are another unsettling phenomenon. Some nights, the asylum seems to replay the cries of its past, with shrill voices echoing through corridors, rising and falling without apparent source. Visitors report being startled by the sound of someone screaming in a cell only a few doors away. Yet upon inspection, the room is empty and silent. Others have described waking in the middle of the night to the sound of distant shouting, or the muffled cries of someone in distress. The intensity of these occurrences can vary, but their presence reinforces the notion that the asylum's history is alive in its walls, a permanent imprint of suffering. Shadowy figures are commonly reported throughout the building, often seen pacing corridors or standing silently behind doors. Many appear to mimic the movement of the living, following visitors from room to room, only to vanish when approached. Some are described as indistinct silhouettes, lacking clear features but radiating a palpable sense of presence. Staff and guides have recounted instances where these shapes appear at the end of hallways or near stairwells, as if observing and waiting, their intentions inscrutable. The padded cells, hallways, and communal wards each seem to have their own character, their own manifestations. In the long-term wards, visitors sometimes hear whispers, murmurs of conversation that fade when one tries to focus. In the isolation areas, the air grows icy suddenly, and objects may shift slightly, as though nudged by unseen hands. Some explorers report feeling an invisible pressure against their bodies, a sensation of being watched or guided, as if the asylum itself is alive, aware of every step taken within its confines. Paranormal investigators have documented many of these phenomena. Cameras capture orbs of light that float erratically through corridors, while audio devices record faint whispers, sometimes calling out names or repeating phrases from the past. Temperature sensors often register dramatic drops in certain areas, sometimes plummeting into near-freezing levels in otherwise temperate conditions. Some investigators have reported EMF spikes near certain rooms, particularly those historically associated with violent incidents or high patient mortality. Despite modern technology, much remains unexplained, reinforcing the asylum's reputation as a hotspot for paranormal activity. Even the outdoor grounds carry a haunting presence. Walking around the asylum at dusk, visitors often sense figures moving just beyond the tree line, hear footsteps crunching on gravel paths, or see shadows flitting across windows. The building's architecture, with its imposing turrets and endless wings, amplifies every sound and shadow, creating an immersive environment where the past seems to breathe alongside the living. Tours of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum are both educational and chilling. Guides share the history of the facility, recounting the overcrowding, the treatments that were often harsh or experimental, and the daily lives of the patients who lived and died there. Yet it is the unexplained occurrences, the whispers, footsteps, and fleeting figures, that leave the deepest impression. Visitors often report feeling a lingering sense of unease long after they leave, as though the asylum has imprinted itself on their memory. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is more than a historic building. It is a monument to human vulnerability and the consequences of neglect and misunderstanding. Its halls, cells, and wings hold stories that refuse to fade, preserved in shadow, sound, and sensation. For those who walk its corridors, the past is never truly past. Phantom children, disembodied screams, and shadowy forms remind all who enter that the asylum's history is alive, etched into the walls and floors, waiting for the curious, the brave, and the unwary to bear witness to its haunting legacy. In the shadowed corners of American folklore and haunted history, certain locations leave such a profound mark that their stories echo repeatedly, their presence refusing to fade from memory. Among these are the Bell Witch Site in Tennessee, Alcatraz Island in San Francisco, and Myrtle's Plantation in Louisiana. Each is different, one a rural curse, another a fortress of human confinement, the last a plantation steeped in tragedy, but all share a potency that haunts not only the land but the minds of those who venture near. Their legends persist because the experiences of the past are so vivid, so full of fear and sorrow, that the spirits of memory seem unwilling to rest. Deep in rural Tennessee, the Bell Witch legend thrives, lingering in the dense woods and the cave that bears her name. Between 1817 and 1821, the Bell family endured an onslaught of supernatural torment. Furniture moved without human touch, walls echoed with whispered threats, and shadowy faces appeared where no one stood. The entity, known as Kate, seemed to have a will of her own, a consciousness that could manipulate the physical world with terrifying ease. Those who visit the cave today often report feeling watched the moment they step inside, an unshakable sensation that unseen eyes follow every movement. Objects are said to move of their own accord, sometimes violently, while faint voices, often in Cherokee or other ancient tongues, whisper from the shadows. Even the bravest explorers admit to a creeping dread, the sense that they have intruded upon a presence far older and far more intelligent than themselves. Alcatraz Island, perched in the icy waters of San Francisco Bay, offers a different but equally compelling kind of haunting. Once home to America's most dangerous criminals, the prison was designed to isolate, contain, and break the human spirit. Today, visitors report footsteps echoing through empty cell blocks, voices carrying across corridors when no one is present, and cold spots in the infamous solitary confinement areas. Some overnight guests claim to have seen shadowy forms pacing the exercise yard under the cover of night, replaying habits formed in life but repeated endlessly in death. The energy of desperation and confinement seems to cling to the stone walls, a lingering imprint of suffering and fear that refuses to dissipate even decades after the prison was decommissioned. Every cell, every bar window, seems to carry a story, and those who spend time here often leave feeling that they have glimpsed a world beyond the living. Meanwhile, in St. Francisville, Louisiana, Myrtle's Plantation stands as a monument to both beauty and tragedy. Rumored to be built atop an Indian burial ground, it is said to host at least 12 spirits. Visitors frequently report shadowy figures moving behind curtains, doors opening and closing without explanation, and the eerie laughter of children drifting through empty rooms. One of the most famous spirits is Chloe, a former enslaved woman said to have died tragically on the property. Guests claim to see her green turban flickering in hallways or feel an invisible presence brush past them as they explore the mansion. The plantation is a place where the past is palpably present, where the energy of grief, injustice, and death seems to cling to the walls, waiting to be acknowledged, experienced, and remembered. What binds these locations together is more than their individual histories. It is the intensity of their presence. The Bell Witch Alcatraz and Myrtle's do not simply host stories. They project them. Visitors report sensations that are difficult to explain, being watched, touched, or followed by forces invisible but undeniably real. Flickering lights, shifting shadows, disembodied voices, and cold drafts all serve as reminders that the past can reach forward, shaping the present with threads of fear and memory. Even skeptics leave these sites with an uneasy awareness that something persists beyond the ordinary, a presence that transcends time and logic. The repetition of these haunted sites in stories and investigations reflects their potency. People do not merely speak of them once and move on. The legends return, resurfacing in conversation, media, and personal experience. Each encounter adds layers to the history, blending first-hand reports with centuries of accumulated energy. For the Bell Witch, Alcatraz, and Myrtles, the land and the memories it holds are inseparable, creating a loop in which the living are drawn repeatedly into the orbit of the departed. Visitors often feel that the sites themselves are aware of their attention, feeding on the presence of witnesses to keep the stories alive. The Bell Witch Cave is still dark and foreboding, its passageways echoing whispers that cannot be traced. Alcatraz, with its cold stone corridors and fog-shrouded exercise yard, continues to replay the desperation of its inmates. Myrtle's Plantation, with its moss-covered trees and shadowed rooms, holds onto the energy of centuries, allowing the stories of Chloe and other spirits to be told anew. Each location demonstrates that haunting is not merely about fear. It is about memory, persistence, and the refusal of the past to be forgotten. These three sites illustrate that some places are more than land or architecture. They are vessels of human experience, steeped in sorrow, injustice, or terror, and capable of projecting that history forward in ways that are still tangible today. Visitors to these locations report not only sights and sounds, but profound emotional resonance, a sense that they have crossed into a domain where history and the supernatural coexist. The Bell Witch, Alcatraz, and Myrtle's Plantation continue to haunt the imagination as much as the physical world, proving that certain presences are too potent to fade, too vivid to be ignored, and too compelling to be experienced only once. Their stories echo endlessly, inviting each new visitor to witness the living memory of the haunted. Along the quiet shores of Pawleys Island, South Carolina, a legend walks the sands long before the skies darken with the threat of hurricanes. Known as the Gray Man, he is said to appear to warn residents of approaching storms, a spectral sentinel who emerges when danger looms. His presence is at once comforting and eerie, a figure shrouded in gray, walking the empty beaches with a solemn purpose of saving lives. For centuries, locals have passed down stories of sightings, and even today, the legend persists, blending folklore with the uncanny reality of nature's fury. The Gray Man is rarely described in great detail, yet those who claim to have seen him offer strikingly consistent accounts. He appears as a tall, thin man, dressed entirely in gray from head to toe, his features often obscured by the haze of early morning or the mist rolling in from the Atlantic. He moves along the shore in silence, leaving no footprints in the sand, yet his presence is unmistakable. Witnesses report feeling a strange sense of calm when he appears, a quiet reassurance that danger can be avoided if his warning is heeded. Many sightings of the Gray Man occur in the days or hours before a hurricane strikes. Islanders recount seeing him at dawn, walking along the beach as the wind begins to pick up, his gray clothing blending with the storm clouds. Some claim he appears near the dunes or at the edge of the surf, moving slowly but purposefully, as though scanning the horizon for signs of impending danger. Those who see him often return home to take precautions, boarding windows, securing boats, and evacuating as necessary. In countless instances, residents credit the Gray Man with warning them in time to protect lives and property. The origin of the Gray Man is shrouded in mystery, a blend of history, myth, and folklore. Some say he was a sea captain, lost at sea but compelled to continue walking the beaches to warn others. Others believe he is a local resident from generations past, a man whose spirit refuses to leave the land he loved, dedicated to guarding the community from the wrath of storms. Historical accounts suggest that sightings have been recorded for over 2 centuries, each report coinciding with approaching hurricanes or tropical storms. Whether he is a benevolent ghost or a mysterious force of nature, the Gray Man has become an integral part of Pawleys Island's identity. The atmosphere surrounding sightings is often described as otherworldly. Witnesses speak of stillness that descends even as the wind picks up and the surf grows restless. The air may carry a subtle chill, though the season is warm, and there's a sense that the world has momentarily slowed. When the Gray Man appears, time seems to shift. The natural sounds of the beach, waves, gulls, rustling palms, fade into the background, leaving only the quiet presence of the figure walking steadily along the sand. Some claim that if they attempt to approach him, he vanishes instantly, leaving nothing behind but the sound of the surf and the imprint of his warning in the mind. Eyewitnesses also note an inexplicable emotional effect. Those who encounter the gray man often feel a mixture of awe and trepidation, as if in the presence of a force both powerful and benevolent. Anxiety about the approaching storm is replaced with an almost instinctual knowledge that safety is possible if his warning is observed. This emotional resonance, combined with the physical sightings, has solidified the gray man's reputation not merely as a ghost, but as a guardian of the island. Over the years, stories of the gray man have spread beyond Pawleys Island, becoming a well-known part of southern coastal folklore. Authors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts have documented sightings, often citing hurricane records that coincide with the reports. Some stories even describe the gray man interacting with multiple people at once, walking along the beach as families prepare for evacuation, ensuring that everyone has noticed the warning. The consistency of these accounts has fueled speculation about the nature of the gray man, whether as a spirit, a spectral projection of nature, or a cultural manifestation of collective memory. The gray man also serves as a reminder of the power and unpredictability of nature. Pawleys Island, like many coastal communities, faces a constant threat of hurricanes, and the legend embodies a human desire for warning, protection, and reassurance. His appearances, whether literal or symbolic, reinforce the connection between the people and the land, the fragile balance between human life and the forces that shape it. To the residents, the gray man is both a guardian and a symbol of the storms that have shaped their history, a presence that bridges past, present, and future. Even today, locals maintain a deep respect for gray man. Visitors are often told that to see him is an honor, a sign that the community is being watched over. Those who live on the island check the skies and the horizon with vigilance, aware that the gray man may appear before the next hurricane, moving silently along the shore to ensure that warning reaches every resident. His legend endures, a ghost who walks the sands not to frighten, but to protect, blending the eerie with the protective, and reminding all who visit that some spirits exist not to haunt, but to guard. The gray man of Pawleys Island remains one of the most enduring coastal legends in America. He is seen not for spectacle, but for purpose, appearing before the wind and the waves, a gray-clad sentinel whose steps mark the line between danger and survival. To witness him is to glimpse the intersection of folklore, history, and the natural world, a figure who walks silently, watching, warning, and safeguarding those who call the island home. In the hush of an approaching storm, his presence is felt, a reminder that some ghosts are not merely memories of the past, but guardians of the present, walking the sands long before the tempest arrives. Nestled in a quiet valley in northern Michigan, the Paulding Light has been a source of fascination, fear, and speculation for decades. Appearing on clear nights along the stretch of U.S. Highway 45, the phenomenon is a glowing orb of white, yellow, or greenish light, drifting across the horizon, pulsing and bobbing as if guided by an unseen hand. Locals, travelers, and paranormal enthusiasts alike have flocked to the site for generations, each drawn by the ethereal glow and the legend that surrounds it. The light is said to be the lantern of a railroad worker who died tragically many decades ago, forever roaming the valley in search of something lost. The first sightings of the Paulding Light date back to the early 20th century, when the area was more rural and isolated than it is today. Residents would tell of a mysterious light appearing along the horizon, moving in ways that seemed impossible for any conventional source. It would hover, split into multiple orbs, and then vanish, only to return minutes later. The local lore quickly attached the story to the phenomenon, a railroad worker, killed while walking the tracks one foggy night, carried his lantern in life, and continued to carry it in death, forever warning or perhaps searching for companions along the deserted railway. Visitors to the site describe an almost hypnotic effect as they watch the light. On quiet nights, the valley falls into an eerie stillness, the only sound to whisper wind through the trees or the occasional far-off animal. Then, against the black horizon, the light appears, a single glowing orb that moves with purpose. It may drift slowly toward the observer, pulse brightly, or hover in place before darting to another location. Some say it almost seems playful, teasing, and testing those who come to witness it, while others feel a sense of solemnity, as though they are observing a restless spirit fulfilling a duty long after death. Theories abound about the nature of the Paulding Light. Skeptics suggest that it is a simple trick of the eyes, caused by car headlights from distant roads refracting through the valley. Others point to atmospheric conditions, gases rising from swampy areas, or natural reflections of distant streetlights. Yet despite scientific attempts to explain it, the light continues to behave in ways that defy complete understanding, changing speed, color, and movement unpredictably. To those who believe in a legend, such explanations feel incomplete, unable to capture the mysterious intelligence and timing that often accompanies the light's appearance. Those who seek a paranormal experience report more than just a visual phenomenon. Some claim to feel a presence in the valley as they watch, a subtle sensation that someone or something is nearby. Cold drafts sweep across the observation points, even on warm summer nights, and a sense of anticipation builds as the light moves through the darkness. Occasionally, it is accompanied by faint sounds, a distant whistle, the clatter of a rail, or the faint hum of an unseen engine, suggesting the restless soul of the railroad worker is still tethered to the earth and the tracks he once walked. Local residents tell stories of repeated encounters, some of which verge on the uncanny. Families have driven out to watch the light together, only to see it behave differently for each observer, as if acknowledging their presence individually. Teenagers report that the light seems to respond to their movements, moving faster when approached or lingering longer when they remain still. Some who have visited night after night speak of the growing familiarity of the light, as though it recognizes them, creating a strange bond between the living and the legend that persists in the valley. The cultural impact of the Paulding Light has also been significant. It has inspired newspaper articles, television features, and countless photographs, many of which show a glowing orb suspended in the dark sky, sharp against the silhouette of the surrounding hills. The legend has become a part of northern Michigan folklore, a story passed down through generations, tying the community to its history of railroads, workers, and rural life. For some, it is a reminder of the dangers and tragedies that accompanied early railroad construction. For others, it is a symbol of mystery, the unknown, and persistence of spirit. The valley itself seems to play a role in the phenomenon. Shrouded in darkness, the surrounding hills and trees create natural corridors that shape the light's movement, while the isolation of the area allows the phenomenon to be observed without interference. The effect is amplified during clear nights, when the stars and moon reflect off the surface of the hills, making the light appear even more otherworldly. Whether natural or supernatural, the combination of environment, history, and human expectation creates an experience that has captivated observers for decades. For those who visit the Paulding Light today, the experience is both thrilling and contemplative. Standing on the quiet road or in the small observation area, the valley stretches before them, dark and still. Then, as if summoned by collective attention, the light appears, glowing, drifting, pulsing. Some reach for cameras, others simply watch in awe, feeling a mixture of excitement, fear, and reverence. And though explanations may vary, one truth remains consistent. The Paulding Light is more than a mere trick of nature. It is a beacon of history, legend, and mystery, a ghostly presence in a rural Michigan valley that continues to inspire wonder and speculation. The legend endures because the light refuses to be fully explained, and the story of the railroad worker who carries his lantern in death continues to resonate. For decades, for generations, the Paulding Light is called out to those who venture into the valley at night, offering both a warning and a haunting, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to be witnessed rather than solved, and that some lights continue to burn long after their owners have passed into memory. In the small riverside town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a legend emerged between 1966 and 1967 that would leave a lasting mark on both community and American folklore. Known as the Mothman, this winged, red-eyed creature appeared seemingly out of nowhere, striking fear and fascination into the hearts of those who encountered it. The account of the Mothman are as chilling as they are mysterious. A towering figure with enormous wings, glowing red eyes that pierce the darkness, and movement so swift and unnatural that witnesses often fled before they could fully comprehend what they had seen. The first reported sightings of the Mothman occurred near the old TNT area, a former munitions site built during World War II and later abandoned. Residents described a strange figure hovering in the shadows, sometimes seen standing motionless, other times darting across the roads with astonishing speed. The eyes, glowing like fiery coals, seem to follow those who pass, giving the impression of intelligence and awareness. Witnesses reported a feeling of unease so powerful that it stayed with them long after the creature vanished into the night. Some even claimed to hear eerie, high-pitched screeches or fluttering sounds, like immense wings slicing through the air. What made the Mothman legend particularly compelling was its association with disaster. Many locals began to believe that sightings of the creature were an omen, a harbinger of impending tragedy. This belief was tragically confirmed on December 15, 1967, when the Silver Bridge, connecting Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed during rush hour traffic. 46 people lost their lives in the accident, and many townspeople recalled that Mothman sightings had intensified in the weeks leading up to the disaster. Whether coincidence or prophecy, the association cemented the creature's reputation as more than a cryptid. It became a symbol of warning, a phantom presence that seemed to know calamity before it struck. Descriptions of the Mothman vary, but common elements persist across reports. Witnesses often speak of an immense size, sometimes described as 7 feet tall or larger, with wings that span at least 10 feet. Its red eyes glow with an unearthly intensity, visible even from great distances in darkness. Some describe a body as humanoid yet unnatural, with gray or black skin and limbs that move with jerky, mechanical precision. Despite these terrifying features, the creature is rarely aggressive. It seems to observe and warn rather than attack. The combination of fear and fascination has kept the legend alive, drawing researchers, cryptid enthusiasts, and tourists to Point Pleasant decades after the initial sightings. During the Mothman's peak activity, dozens of people reported encounters in and around the town. Some were driving at night when the creature appeared suddenly in the headlights, causing them to swerve or stop in shock. Others saw it perched on rooftops, telephone poles, or treetops, its red eyes scanning the area as if counting or judging. Local law enforcement received numerous calls, though they often dismissed the reports as hoaxes or misidentifications. Yet the consistency and detail of eyewitness accounts defied easy explanation, leading to a mix of fear, intrigue, and speculation that gripped the town for years. Paranormal researchers, cryptozoologists, and journalists flocked to Point Pleasant to investigate. Many attempted to explain the sighting scientifically. Some suggested misidentified birds, such as owls or sandhill cranes, while others pointed to mass hysteria fueled by rumor and fear. Yet no theory could account for the intensity, timing, and sheer number of reports, nor could they explain the persistent association with the Silver Bridge collapse. To this day, the Mothman remains a mystery, a phenomenon that straddles a line between folklore, paranormal activity, and cryptid lore. The town of Point Pleasant has embraced the legend over time, transforming fear into fascination. The Mothman Museum and the annual Mothman Festival draw visitors from around the world, all seeking to understand, celebrate, or simply experience a piece of the eerie history. The legend has inspired books, documentaries, and films, each retelling the story with a mixture of fact, speculation, and creative interpretation. For locals, the Mothman is more than a myth. It is part of the community's identity, a cautionary tale, and a unique connection to the unknown. Beyond the specific sightings, the Mothman embodies a universal human fascination with the unknown. Its appearances are often accompanied by a sense of foreboding, a feeling that something beyond human comprehension is observing and perhaps guiding the events around it. Witnesses frequently report a combination of fear, awe, and respect, suggesting that the creature is both terrifying and strangely protective. It is a reminder that the natural and supernatural worlds may sometimes intersect in ways that defy explanation, and that legends often arise from a mixture of fear, tragedy, and collective experience. Even today, long after the original sightings, the legend persists. Locals report occasional glimpses of a large, winged figure in the forests and hills surrounding the town. Some claim to hear the flutter of wings or catch a flash of red light in the darkness. Whether the Mothman continues to patrol the area as an omen, or whether the sightings are the lingering echoes of a legend born in tragedy, the effect on Point Pleasant is undeniable. The town remains marked by its brush with the unexplained, a place where the extraordinary intersected with reality in a way that few communities ever experience. The Mothman of Point Pleasant endures as one of America's most famous cryptid hauntings. A winged, red-eyed guardian of folklore, warning of disaster, haunting memory, and capturing the imagination of generations. His presence, real or imagined, continues to cast a shadow over the town, a reminder that sometimes the unseen world touches the living in ways both profound and unsettling, leaving stories that are retold again and again, long after the lights have faded and the wings have disappeared into the night. Rising majestically against the Atlantic breeze, the St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida is a striking landmark, its white tower standing as both a beacon of safety and a monument to centuries of history. Constructed in the 1800s, the lighthouse has guided countless ships through treacherous waters, enduring storms, hurricanes, and the passage of time. Yet beneath its architectural beauty lies a layer of sorrow and mystery. For generations, visitors, caretakers, and paranormal investigators have reported experiences that hint at the lingering presence of those who once walked its spiral stairwell, tended its lanterns, and lived near its shadow. Among the most enduring tales are those of two young girls who tragically drowned during construction era. Locals and guests claim that their spirits still inhabit the lighthouse, their presence most commonly sensed in the spiral staircase that winds up to the beacon. Visitors report hearing the laughter of children echoing through the narrow corridors, soft and playful, yet strangely out of place in the cold, stone walls. Sometimes the sound comes from directly above or below, making it difficult to pinpoint the source, as if the girls are moving unseen, repeating a pattern of life that was cruelly cut short. Footsteps are another common occurrence. Late-night caretakers and overnight visitors have described the unmistakable sound of someone ascending or descending the stairs when they are alone, heavy steps echoing in rhythm with the heartbeats of those who listen. Doors creak open without cause, and the atmosphere of the tower itself seems charged, as if the building has absorbed the memories and emotions of everyone who has ever passed through its halls. Even the most skeptical investigators admit to feeling an oppressive weight, a sensation of being observed by an unseen presence. Lantern lights, once vital for guiding ships safely to shore, often behave inexplicably. Witnesses report that lights in the tower sway or flicker when no one is present, casting dancing shadows along the spiral staircase. On some occasions, the beam of the lighthouse appears to move in unusual patterns, as if responding to the presence of a visitor. Caretakers who work late into the night frequently describe moments when the equipment seems alive, almost sentient, as though the lighthouse itself is aware of the living occupants in its midst. The lighthouse has a long history of storms and shipwrecks, each leaving behind its own echo of tragedy. Hurricane records from the 19th and early 20th centuries recount ships dashed against the shore despite the guiding light of the tower, sailors lost to the merciless sea. Some say that the spirits of those who perish in these waters linger near the lighthouse, their sorrow woven into the air. Visitors sometimes report cold drafts in narrow corridors, sudden drops in temperature near the windows, or the feeling of invisible hands brushing past their shoulders. The building seems to act as a vessel for memory and grief, holding on to the anguish and fear of generations. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the St. Augustine Lighthouse, attracted by the density of reported phenomena. Many set up audio and video equipment in the hope of capturing the inexplicable. Electronic voice phenomenon, EVP. Sessions often reveal faint voices, sometimes repeating names or phrases from long ago. Cameras occasionally record orbs of light moving through the tower in patterns inconsistent with natural explanations. And temperature sensors pick up dramatic fluctuations without source. The energy of the place is so thick that even seasoned investigators describe the sensation as almost overwhelming, a presence that seems both watchful and protective. The experiences of ordinary visitors are equally compelling. Families touring the lighthouse during the day may feel sudden chills or notice doors closing on their own. Nighttime tours, especially those focusing on the lighthouse's haunted history, often provoke reactions of awe and unease. Guests frequently describe a heightened awareness, a feeling that they're not alone even in areas that appear empty. Many come away with stories of laughter echoing from the spiral stairs, lights that flicker for no reason, or an inexplicable pressure in the air. These experiences have helped cement the lighthouse's reputation as one of Florida's most haunted historic sites. Despite the paranormal activity, the St. Augustine Lighthouse continues to function as a symbol of safety and resilience. It has been meticulously maintained over the decades, standing tall against storms, hurricanes, and the passage of time. Its history is inseparable from the lives and deaths that occurred in its shadow, and its spirit, whether literal or metaphorical, remains palpable. The tower is a living memory, a place where the past and present converge, and where the energy of the lighthouse seems to stretch beyond the tangible, touching all who enter. The legend of the two girls, the mysterious footsteps, and the dancing lanterns persist not only because of the strange occurrences themselves, but because the lighthouse has become a repository of human experience. Each visitor, caretaker, and investigator adds a layer to its story, a connection to the unseen, a brush with the inexplicable. Augustine Lighthouse is more than a historic building. It is a monument to memory, tragedy, and the possibility that some spirits remain to watch, to guide, and to remind the living of those who came before. Standing against the Atlantic horizon, the St. Augustine Lighthouse continues to inspire awe, reverence, and a deep sense of the supernatural. Its spiral stairwell holds echoes of laughter and footsteps, its lanterns flicker with unseen presence, and its walls carry the energy of countless souls. For those who visit, the lighthouse is a place where history meets haunting, where the past reaches forward to brush against the present, and where the spirits of children and the echoes of tragedy remain, watching silently over the shore. In the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, a small, unassuming house holds one of the most chilling chapters in American true crime history. Built at the turn of the century, the home became infamous in 1912 when a Moore family and two visiting children were brutally murdered with an axe. The crime stunned the community and has remained unsolved for over a century, leaving behind a lingering darkness that continues to haunt the property. Today, the Villisca Axe Murder House stands as a preserved snapshot of that fateful night, its rooms silent yet heavy with the echoes of tragedy, drawing thrill-seekers, paranormal investigators, and curious visitors from around the country. Entering the house, visitors are struck by the eerie stillness that seems to cling to every wall and piece of furniture. The rooms remain as they were the day after the murders, untouched and frozen in time. Beds remain neatly made, personal items left as if their owners might return at any moment. Yet beneath this carefully preserved order lies an oppressive atmosphere, a weight that presses on those who walk the narrow hallways. Overnight guests often describe feeling watched, a sensation of unseen eyes following their every movement, as though the house itself remembers the horror that occurred within its walls. Footsteps are one of the most commonly reported phenomena. Guests describe hearing slow, deliberate steps echoing across the wooden floors when no one else is present. Sometimes the footsteps come from the hallway outside a bedroom, other times from the attic, where the killer is believed by some to have hidden during the attack. The creaking of floorboards, the sudden thud of a door, or the distant sound of someone pacing can startle even seasoned paranormal investigators. Each sound carries with it an unshakable sense of urgency, as if replaying the terror of that night over and over again. Whispers and murmurs add to the haunting. Some report hearing faint prayers uttered softly in the corners of rooms, while others catch fragments of conversation or names being called. The children's room, in particular, seems to hold an intense concentration of residual energy. Guests have recounted hearing the soft crying of the young victims, their sobs echoing faintly from behind closed doors or beneath the beds. The combination of sound, atmosphere, and history creates an overwhelming sense of sadness that can leave visitors emotionally shaken. Doors and windows behave unpredictably, opening and closing without explanation. Guests have reported doors swinging wide despite being securely latched, or sliding shut as though pushed by invisible hands. Some have noticed cabinets and drawers moving, their contents slightly disturbed, as if the house itself is restless. While skeptics might attribute these occurrences to the old house settling, those familiar with the history of the property often describe them as more sinister, evidence of the lingering presence of the souls who were taken violently and too soon. The attic, small and dimly lit, holds a particularly chilling reputation. Believed by some to be the hiding place of the murderer during the horrific events, it carries an intense, almost tangible sense of malevolence. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, icy drafts, and a heaviness that seems to push down from the low ceiling beams. The creaking of the bed in this room is frequently cited as one of the most unsettling experiences. It occurs without wind or human presence, a reminder of the house's violent past. Many who spend time in the attic describe a sense of dread so strong that it is difficult to remain calm, a feeling as if the walls themselves are replaying the last moments of the victims. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the Villisca Axe murder house, setting up cameras, audio recorders, and motion sensors in an attempt to document the unexplained. Many claim to have captured strange phenomena, flickering orbs of light drifting through rooms, disembodied voices captured on electronic voice recorders, and sudden changes in temperature that cannot be explained by drafts or weather. Even seasoned professionals report the atmosphere as one of the heaviest and most oppressive in the Midwest, a place where the weight of history and tragedy seems to saturate the very air, despite, or perhaps because of, its dark history. The house has been preserved as a site for tours and overnight stays. Visitors are drawn to the combination of historical intrigue and paranormal activity, experiencing firsthand the haunting that continues more than a century after murders. Many describe leaving the house with a lingering unease, a sense that the past has brushed against them, and that the spirits of more family and the two visiting children continue to occupy their home. The experience is not merely one of fright. It is a visceral connection to an event frozen in time, a direct link to tragedy and unresolved mystery. The Villisca Axe murder house stands as one of the darkest sites of residual haunting in the Midwest. Its walls, furniture, and corridors retain the echoes of violence, sorrow, and terror, creating an environment where the past refuses to remain buried. Footsteps, whispered prayers, creaking beds, and the soft cries of children serve as constant reminders of lives lost and innocence destroyed. For those who enter, the house is a lesson in the power of memory and persistence of energy, a place where history is not merely remembered but actively present, waiting quietly for the living to bear witness. Walking to the house, whether on a guided tour or during an overnight stay, visitors cannot escape the sense that they are not alone. Every shadow, every sound, and every flicker of light feels imbued with meaning. The Villisca Axe murder house is more than a historical curiosity. It is a living memorial to a tragedy that refuses to fade, a place where the past walks alongside the present, and where the echoes of that horrific night continue to haunt all who enter. Moored permanently in the harbor of Long Beach, California, the RMS Queen Mary stands as a striking reminder of both luxury and tragedy. Once a proud ocean liner that carried passengers across the Atlantic in style and speed, she has since become a floating hotel, museum, and one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Her gleaming exterior hides decades of history, both glamorous and grim, and visitors quickly discover that the ship carries more than memories. It carries spirits, echoes of lives lost, and whispers of tragedies that refuse to remain in the past. During her years of service, the Queen Mary witnessed both celebration and calamity. She ferried wealthy passengers across the ocean in opulent cabins and grand ballrooms, yet hundreds of people perished aboard over the years. Accidents occurred during docking, machinery malfunctions claimed lives, and wartime service brought even greater casualties. Sailors died in training exercises, passengers drowned in tragic mishaps, and countless injuries left lingering trauma in the corridors of the ship. Those events are said to have left a permanent imprint on the vessel, creating a dense energy that lingers even decades later. Guests of the Queen Mary often report eerie experiences, some of which defy rational explanation. Walk to the grand hallways or the narrow passageways of the lower decks, and it is not unusual to encounter apparitions of sailors in uniform. Witnesses describe them walking through solid walls, moving with purpose as if still performing their duties. Sometimes the figures vanish suddenly, leaving only the sound of their boots echoing through the corridor. Other times, doors slam shut on their own, while the faint hum of machinery echoes from areas long since decommissioned. Even seasoned staff and paranormal investigators describe a palpable feeling of being watched, a tension that seems to saturate the air aboard the vessel. Among the most famous spectral figures is the Lady in White. Sightings of this elegant ghost are often reported in the Queen Mary's Grand Ballroom, where she is seen gliding gracefully across the floor, dressed in a flowing white gown. Some say she appears to be searching for someone, her face etched with sadness. Others suggest she is reliving a moment of joy or tragedy from her life aboard the ship. Guests who have encountered her often speak of a sudden drop in temperature, a soft breeze brushing against their skin, or the faint sound of music echoing from the ballroom's walls. The Lady in White has become a symbol of the Queen Mary's haunted legacy, a reminder that beauty and sorrow can coexist in the same space. The lower decks of the ship are said to be the most active, particularly areas where tragic accidents occurred. One of the most infamous incidents involves a sailor who was crushed by a watertight door, a death so sudden and violent that it is said to have left a permanent imprint on the surrounding halls. Visitors report hearing the sound of metal scraping and doors slamming, as though the accident were replaying itself endlessly. Some claim to see ghostly figures crouching or standing near the door, waiting, watching, or trapped in a moment from decades past. The atmosphere in these areas is thick and heavy, leaving many guests with a sense of dread that is difficult to shake. Paranormal investigations aboard the Queen Mary have documented a range of unexplained phenomena. Cameras sometimes capture shadowy figures darting across hallways or standing silently at the end of a corridor. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, sessions have picked up disembodied voices, some repeating phrases, others calling out names or giving vague instructions. Temperature sensors frequently register dramatic drops, especially near the lower decks or near areas where accidents occurred. Even without equipment, many visitors describe a feeling of being observed, a pressure in the air that suggests the ship itself is aware of their presence. The history of the Queen Mary as a wartime vessel adds another layer to her haunting. During World War II, she was converted into a troop ship, ferrying thousands of soldiers across dangerous waters. Many who served aboard never returned, lost combat, disease, or accident. Some say the energy of those countless lives aboard the ship has become intertwined with her structure, leaving an imprint that is experienced by visitors and guests. It is not unusual to hear the echo of marching feet, the distant hum of engines, or the feeling of being followed through the dimly lit corridors. The ship carries the weight of human endeavor and human loss, a floating monument to lives both celebrated and mourned. Guests staying overnight often recount experiences that cannot be explained by imagination alone. Footsteps echo down the hall when no one is there, lights flicker or swing in the absence of wind, and doors open and close on their own. Some report sudden chills or the sensation of an unseen hand brushing against their shoulder. Even those who enter expecting nothing strange often leave with stories of encounters that defy reason, a testament to the Queen Mary's powerful residual energy. The Queen Mary continues to sail across the realms of history and the supernatural, anchored in Long Beach yet alive with the echoes of the past. She hums softly at night, as though engines from another era continue their voyage, and her corridors and decks hold memories of joy, tragedy, and the countless souls who have passed through them. Visitors are drawn not only by her elegance, but by the sense that something remains, something watching, something waiting, and something that refuses to be forgotten. The Queen Mary is more than a historic ship. She is a vessel of memory, a monument to the lives that shaped her decks and the tragedies that haunt them still. From ghostly sailors walking through walls to the Lady in White gliding through the ballroom, from the hum of phantom machinery to the cries of unseen victims, the ship embodies the intersection of history, human experience, and the supernatural. Those who step aboard are entering a world where the past persists, where echoes of life and death intermingle, and where the Queen Mary continues her voyage, forever haunted, forever magnificent. Perched high on a hill overlooking the town of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, the Crescent Hotel has long been a landmark of elegance, mystery, and tragedy. Built in 1886, it was designed to attract the wealthy and the curious, offering sweeping views of the Ozark Mountains and a promise of refined luxury. Yet behind the grand architecture and sweeping verandas lies a darker history, one that has earned it the title America's Most Haunted Hotel. Over the decades, the Crescent has seen wealth and decline, healing and horror, life and death, and today it stands as both a functioning hotel and a repository of restless spirits. Perhaps the most infamous chapter in the hotel's history occurred in the 1930s, when it operated as a cancer hospital under the direction of Dr. Norman Baker, a fraudulent and deeply unethical practitioner. Claiming to offer revolutionary treatments, Baker preyed on vulnerable patients, conducting bizarre experiments and exploiting those who came seeking cures. Many who entered never left, and the building's hallways, once intended for comfort, became corridors of fear and suffering. Visitors to the Crescent today often report seeing glowing figures in old hospital gowns, moving silently through the halls, replaying the last moment of their lives in a looping echo of trauma. One of the most common phenomena involves the nurse's cart, which appears to roll down hallways late at night with no one pushing it. Guests are described hearing the clatter of metal wheels against wood, accompanied by a faint scent of antiseptic or medicine, drifting eerily through the air. Sometimes the cart stops abruptly in front of doors or vanishes into walls, leaving no trace of the person who once guided it. Those who encounter it often report a chill running down their spine, an inexplicable sense of being observed, or a sudden tension in the air, as if the hotel itself remembers the suffering that took place within its walls. The Crescent Hotel's room 218 has earned a reputation as the most haunted room in the building. During construction, a stone mason tragically fell to his death, and many believe his spirit remains restless. Guests staying in room 218 frequently report violent knocking or banging coming from the walls, sudden drops in temperature, and objects moving without explanation. Some have described a feeling of being touched, shoved, or watched, and even the bravest visitors often leave the room with an enduring sense of unease. Paranormal investigators consider this room a hotspot, with electronic devices registering unusual activity and cameras capturing fleeting shadows. Other areas of the hotel also carry strong residual energy. The grand staircases, once meant to impress arriving guests, echo with phantom footsteps in the quiet hours of the night. Hallways are sometimes filled with muffled whispers or the faint laughter of children, voices that seem to drift from nowhere, impossible to trace to a source. Doors creak open and close without cause, lights flicker unpredictably, and visitors often sense a presence behind them, disappearing when they turn to look. The cumulative effect of decades of sorrow, fear, and restless spirits creates an atmosphere that is both thrilling and unsettling. Guests and investigators alike have shared a variety of experiences over the years. Some describe seeing apparitions of former patients, sometimes in seated positions as if waiting for treatment, other times pacing silently through the halls. Shadows flit along walls, vanish around corners, or linger near doorways, leaving an uneasy impression long after the encounter. Many visitors speak of sudden headaches, chills, or a feeling of being watched, sensations that are difficult to attribute solely to imagination. Even staff members admit to feeling an unexplained heaviness in certain areas of the hotel, particularly after dark. The Crescent Hotel has embraced its reputation, offering paranormal tours and overnight stays for those brave enough to seek an encounter. Guides recount the history of Dr. Baker's hospital, the construction accident, and the many reported hauntings, allowing visitors to experience the hotel's eerie energy firsthand. Each tour highlights different areas of activity, from the nurse's cart in hallways to room 218 and the grand staircases, emphasizing that the Crescent's hauntings are as much a part of its story as the architecture and history of the building. While skeptics may attempt to explain the phenomena as natural occurrences, drafts, or the effects of suggestion, the sheer number and consistency of reports are difficult to dismiss. Over a century of stories, eyewitness accounts, and documented investigations all point to a lingering presence, a residual energy that refuses to fade. The Crescent Hotel is not merely haunted by specific individuals. It is haunted by its own history, a place where tragedy, deceit, and death have left lasting impressions that continue to reach out to the living. Walking through the Crescent Hotel today, visitors are immediately struck by the contrast between its stately beauty and its chilling reputation. The ornate architecture, sweeping views, and elegant decor are juxtaposed against the creaks, whispers, and unexplained lights that haunt the hallways. Guests often leave with stories that linger long after their visit. Tales of glowing figures, rolling carts, and the persistent, uneasy presence in room 218. The Crescent is a place where history and the supernatural converge, where the energy of the past continues to echo through the halls, inviting all who enter to witness its mysteries firsthand. The Crescent Hotel is a monument not only to architectural grandeur, but also to human history in all its complexity. Its beauty and its horrors coexist, creating an experience that is both captivating and unsettling. From a fraudulent hospital and the suffering patients, to the tragic stone mason and the restless spirits that remain, the Crescent Hotel endures as a living repository of history, memory, and the unexplained. For those who walk its halls, it is a place where the past is never truly gone, and where the spirits of those who once lived, suffered, and died continue to roam, unseen but ever present. In the heart of Fall River, Massachusetts, the house at 92 2nd Street stands as a chilling monument to one of America's most infamous crimes. In 1892, Andrew and Abby Borden were brutally murdered in their home, and the horrific event left the town and the nation gripped by fear and fascination. The story of Lizzie Borden, the daughter accused but ultimately acquitted of the murders, became legend, immortalized in a rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe. Over a century later, the house remains preserved as a bed and breakfast, where visitors come not only to experience history, but also to encounter the lingering presence of tragedy and suspicion. Walking to the front doors, guests are immediately struck by the house's eerie atmosphere. The rooms retain their late 19th century character, complete with period furnishings, ornate woodwork, and quiet hallways that seem almost too still. Yet beneath this calm, many visitors report an unsettling energy, as if the house itself remembers a horror that unfolded within its walls. Overnight guests frequently describe sensations that cannot be easily explained, voices whispering softly, calling their names, sudden chills in otherwise warm rooms, and the persistent feeling of being watched, particularly from the staircase landing where Lizzie herself is said to have stood. Room 4, often called the upstairs guest room, is one of the most active areas of the house. Guests staying overnight have reported cold air surrounding the bed, even when heaters are on full blast, and the sense that an unseen presence is seated or standing nearby. Some describe hearing footsteps pacing along the hallway or moving in the adjoining rooms, though no one is there. Others recount hearing faint murmurs, as if a conversation is occurring just out of reach, or soft tapping against the walls and furniture, echoing through the night. Many who awaken to these sensations feel a deep, almost suffocating tension, as though the past has reached forward to brush against the present. The staircase landing, where Lizzie herself is said to have walked, carries a particularly strong impression. Guests report sudden glances of movement from a corner of the eye, shadows flitting down the stairs, and a general sensation of being observed. Some have claimed to see a figure standing silently at the top of the stairs, dressed in the fashion of the 1890s, before it vanishes without a sound. These sightings are accompanied by a heavy, almost oppressive atmosphere, a reminder that the house harbors memories that have not faded with time. Paranormal investigators and historians alike have documented experiences that suggest the Borden's presence lingers. Electronic voice phenomenon, EVP. Recordings often capture whispers, soft footsteps, or indistinct voices calling out names. Some investigators have reported sudden temperature drops in specific rooms, flickering lights, and unexplainable shadows moving along the walls. Even seasoned skeptics admit that the energy in the house feels unusually thick, a combination of historical tragedy and unresolved tension that seems almost aware of those who enter. The house itself has been preserved meticulously, offering guests a glimpse into Borden's life while maintaining the atmosphere of the 1890s. Period furniture, wallpapers, and photographs create an authentic backdrop, but it is this preservation that also intensifies the haunting. Guests note that the environment feels lived and yet frozen in time, a place where the echoes of violent acts and lingering suspicions remain vivid. The preservation allows visitors to step into the history, while also feeling the weight of past horrors pressing just beneath the surface. The legend of Lizzie Borden's guilt or innocence adds another layer to the haunting. Many believe that her spirit wanders the halls, as enigmatic and secretive in death as she was in life. Guests report fleeting glimpses of a figure in Victorian dress, sometimes appearing at windows and hallways or standing quietly in corners, as if observing or even denying her culpability. The ambiguity of her presence mirrors the unresolved questions of the past, leaving visitors to wonder whether they are witnessing the daughter of murder, a restless spirit, or merely the echo of history imprinted upon the house. Even the daytime atmosphere carries an undercurrent of unease. Walking to the living room, dining areas, or bedrooms, visitors often feel a subtle tension, a sense that the house watches silently. Sound that might ordinarily be ignored, a floorboard creaking, a door swinging gently, a sudden draft, are imbued with significance, reminding guests that tragedy has left a permanent mark. The juxtaposition of domestic normalcy and the lingering echoes of violence creates an experience that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Many overnight guests leave with stories they cannot easily explain. Some recount waking to whispers, feeling invisible hands brush against them, or seeing fleeting shadows on the walls. Others report hearing the soft footfalls of someone descending the stairs in the dead of night, or a presence sitting quietly near the bed, watching. The Lizzie Borden House is a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge, offering a rare glimpse into the unresolved tension of the past. The Lizzie Borden House remains a chilling reminder of a violent night and the mystery that followed. Its preserved rooms, whispered voices, cold air, and shadowy figures allow guests to experience the weight of history firsthand. Lizzie herself seems to linger in the halls, silent yet observant, denying or defying judgment even in death. For those who enter, the house is more than a historical site. It is a place where the past refuses to remain buried, where the Borden spirits continue to roam, and where the echoes of tragedy are felt long after the doors close behind them. Nestled in Wilder, Kentucky, Bobby Mackey's Music World appears at first glance to be an ordinary honky-tonk bar, a place of live music, neon lights, and the lively chatter patrons enjoying a night out. Yet beneath the veneer of country songs and cold drinks lies a darkness that has captivated thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and paranormal enthusiasts for decades. Beneath the stage and dance floor, hidden from view, is a concrete basement that has long been associated with sinister rituals, strange occurrences, and a malevolent presence that continues to torment anyone who ventures too close. The legend of Bobby Mackey's Music World is inseparable from its basement, a space said to have been used for occult ceremonies, dark sacrifices, and other mysterious rituals long before the bar was ever built. Stories claim that the room was a site where human and animal sacrifices took place, and that the energy from those events has left a permanent imprint on the property. Patrons and employees alike have reported experiences that defy logic, scratches appearing on skin without cause, sudden pushes or shoves, and even instances of temporary possession in which individuals act in ways completely unlike themselves. The air in the building often feels charged with tension, thick and oppressive, as if warning visitors that some unseen presence is aware of their every move. One of the most infamous entities associated with Bobby Mackey's is a spirit named Johanna. She is said to haunt the stage and the basement, a spectral figure whose presence is both alluring and terrifying. Witnesses have described hearing her singing softly, her voice melodic but tinged with sadness or malice, long after the lights are extinguished and the last patrons have left. The sound of her voice drifting through the empty bar is often accompanied by a feeling of cold that runs down the spine, an awareness of being watched, and a sensation that the spirit is close enough to touch yet remains just beyond reach. Some claim that Johanna was a woman wronged long ago, her spirit bound to location through anger, sorrow, or vengeance. Others suggest she may be a remnant of the dark rituals that took place in the basement, a consciousness born from the accumulation of fear and suffering. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the bar, eager to document the phenomena that so many claim to experience. Many who enter leave shaken, reporting activity that seems almost intelligent, targeted, and deeply malevolent. Recordings have captured disembodied voices, footsteps echoing on empty floors, and objects moving on their own. Temperature sensors often spike and drop inexplicably, and sensitive equipment registers electrical disturbances without cause. Investigators frequently report a pervasive sense of dread, the kind of oppressive energy that makes it difficult to stay focused, as if the building itself resists their presence. Even those experienced with the paranormal have admitted that Bobby Mackey's is unlike any other location they have encountered. Staff members working late hours often report interactions that cannot be explained away. Glasses shift slightly on the bar top, chairs scrape across the floor without anyone near them, and the sound of faint whispers or murmurs can be heard in the empty corners of the room. Many describe sudden, unexplained scratches or bruises appearing on their arms or backs, as if the entity itself wishes to remind them of its presence. Some have spoken of being temporarily overcome by a strange compulsion, moving or speaking in ways entirely uncharacteristic, only to return to normal moments later with no memory of what occurred. These unsettling events contribute to the bar's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the United States. The basement, often sealed off from casual visitors, is the epicenter of the activity. Patrons who have ventured down report a suffocating heaviness in the air, a feeling that the space is alive with the energy of those who suffered there long ago. The walls seem to pulse or breathe, and shadows appear to move independently of the lighting. Many visitors hear footsteps pacing in rhythm with their own, or the distant clatter of objects falling, though nothing has been disturbed. The oppressive atmosphere makes it clear that the basement is a place of residual trauma and malevolence, a room where dark energy has accumulated over decades, if not centuries. Despite the fear it inspires, Bobby Mackey's music world continues to draw crowds, both for its live music and its infamous reputation. Many guests visit with a sense of daring, hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural or experience the thrill of standing in a location so thoroughly haunted. Even during performances, some claim to feel a presence in the crowd, a chill brushing across the skin, or a whisper carried on the sound of the music, as though Johanna herself is observing from the stage. The bar has become a crossroads of history, folklore, and the unexplained, where reality and legend intertwine. Visitors often leave with stories that linger long after their night is over. Some speak of hearing Johanna's soft song echoing in their minds, feeling a push or scrape when no one is near, or sensing a shadow that moves independently of light. Others describe a momentary paralysis, the sensation of being unable to move as unseen eyes observe, before finally being released from the oppressive energy. Bobby Mackey's is not merely a bar. It is a place where history, ritual, and malevolent energy converge, creating an experience that is both terrifying and mesmerizing. Bobby Mackey's music world endures as a haunting testament to the unexplained. Its neon lights, country melodies, and bustling crowds obscure a deeper darkness that resides just beneath the surface. Johanna's song, the scratches, the footsteps, and the oppressive energy all serve as reminders that some spirits do not rest quietly. For those who enter willingly, the bar offers a glimpse into the intersection of entertainment, history, and the supernatural, a space where the line between the living and the dead is thin, and where the malevolent presence beneath the floorboards continues to sing, "Wait and watch." Deep in the remote desert of northeastern Utah lies a property shrouded in fear, mystery, and legend, Skinwalker Ranch. Spanning hundreds of acres of arid land, the ranch appears ordinary at first glance, dotted with barns, pastures, and stretches of sagebrush. Yet those who spend even a single night here quickly realize that the land is anything but normal. For decades, Skinwalker Ranch has been the epicenter of unexplained phenomena. UFO sightings, terrifying creatures, strange lights, and a lingering presence of something that seems almost alive, watching and waiting. Native legends long before modern investigation spoke of skinwalkers, shapeshifters capable of assuming human form, mimicking voices, and taking on the shapes of animals to terrorize, manipulate, or curse. These stories warn that the land itself is a domain of unnatural power, a place where the natural order bends under forces beyond comprehension. Modern visitors have reported experiences that echo these ancient warnings, encounters so vivid and unsettling that skeptics struggle to explain them. Ranch workers and residents have long described lights moving in impossible ways across the desert night sky. These glowing orbs sometimes hover mere inches above the ground, dart across open fields at impossible speeds, or vanish suddenly into thin air. Witnesses claim that the lights do not behave like conventional aircraft or drones. They defy gravity, change color, and sometimes appear to follow or interact with those observing them. Occasionally, these phenomena are accompanied by guttural growls, low hisses, or chilling animalistic sounds circling the perimeter of camps, as though some unseen predator is studying or stalking them. The creatures reported on the ranch are among the most terrifying aspects of its lore. Many accounts describe massive wolf-like or hybrid animals with glowing eyes, capable of moving at unnatural speed and vanishing without a trace. Some witnesses have claimed to see figures that appear human at first, only to shift into terrifying forms in the blink of an eye. These experiences leave a deep impression, often accompanied by paralyzing fear and a sense of being hunted. Unlike ordinary wildlife, the behavior of these entities is calculated, almost intelligent, as if they are aware of who is watching and are deliberately instilling terror. Even technology seems powerless at Skinwalker Ranch. Cameras fail, batteries die inexplicably, and electronics glitch without cause. Some visitors report setting up recording devices only to find footage corrupted, images blurred or erased, and audio files containing strange, indecipherable noises. There are accounts of entire nights passing with no memory of what occurred, missing time that cannot be accounted for, leaving those present with only vague impressions and a lingering sense that something interrupted their perception of reality. These technological anomalies reinforce the feeling that the ranch is under control of forces beyond human understanding, a territory where conventional rules do not apply. The ranch has also become infamous for UFO sightings. Residents have seen bright, metallic crafts hovering silently in the sky, performing maneuvers impossible for conventional aircraft. Some of these crafts appear near the glowing orbs, suggesting a connection between the aerial phenomena and the mysterious lights observed closer to the ground. Witnesses describe an almost hypnotic quality to these sightings, a sense that the crafts are aware of them, watching and responding. Even when the phenomena vanish, the feeling of being observed lingers long after, leaving a lasting impression on those who witnessed them. Paranormal investigations over the years have documented a wide array of unexplained activity. Audio recordings have captured unidentifiable sounds, growls, whispers, and high-pitched screeches echoing across the property. Cameras sometimes record shadowy figures that vanish when approached, and motion sensors trigger alerts with no detectable source. Investigators frequently report an oppressive, almost sentient energy, a feeling that the land itself resists intrusion, and that something unseen is protecting or concealing its secrets. The ranch's reputation has attracted both professional and amateur researchers, many of whom leave shaken, disturbed, and questioning what is truly possible. Native history and folklore seem intertwined with the modern accounts of Skinwalker Ranch. The land sits in a region long considered sacred and dangerous, a place where shapeshifters and spirits were said to roam freely. Contemporary reports echo these ancient stories, voices mimicking loved ones, sudden animal attacks, and eerie encounters with beings that do not fit any natural explanation. Visitors often report being lured or deceived by sounds of people calling their names, only to find no one there, a hallmark of the Skinwalker legend itself. Despite extensive research, the ranch's secrets remain intact. Its phenomena are unpredictable, sometimes appearing for weeks or months, then vanishing as quickly as they arrived. Those who spend time on property often describe a profound sense of vigilance, an awareness that whatever inhabits the land is intelligent, aware, and capable of influencing perception, behavior, and even memory. The combination of visual anomalies, terrifying creatures, electronic disruptions, and missing time makes Skinwalker Ranch one of the most enigmatic and unnerving locations in the world. Skinwalker Ranch endures as a place where the natural and supernatural intersect in ways that defy explanation. Its barren fields, darkened barns, and quiet desert nights conceal a history of encounters that range from eerie to horrifying. Witnesses report lights, sounds, and entities that seem intelligent, aware, and unrelenting in their purpose. Whether one believes in the ancient legends of shape-shifting skinwalkers, modern UFO phenomena, or simply the weight of human imagination amplified by fear, the ranch exerts a powerful hold on those who enter. For anyone who steps onto its grounds, the experience is unforgettable, a place where the line between reality and the unknown is blurred, where the desert guards its secrets fiercely, and where the unseen presence of skinwalkers waits in silence, watching, listening, and waiting. Hidden within the dense woods of Midlothian, Illinois, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery is a small, unassuming burial ground that has captured the attention of ghost hunters, photographers, and thrill-seekers for decades. Though tiny and overgrown, with crooked headstones and weathered markers, the cemetery has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted sites in the United States. Its eerie charm is amplified by the surrounding forest preserve, where shadows lengthen and the line between the natural world and the supernatural seems to blur. Visitors often remark that stepping into Bachelor's Grove feels like crossing a threshold, leaving the ordinary world behind and entering a place where time, space, and reality itself behave differently. The cemetery is famous for its photographic anomalies, particularly the ethereal figures that appear in photographs taken at night. Perhaps the most iconic image is that of a glowing woman seated on a tombstone, her form radiating an unearthly light. Countless photographers, both amateur and professional, have captured similar apparitions over the years, figures that appear fully formed, often gazing directly at the camera, yet vanish when approached. These images have fueled speculation and fascination, making Bachelor's Grove a magnet for those hoping to witness the paranormal firsthand. Some visitors claim that the spirits seem aware of their presence, observing silently from the shadows, sometimes stepping into the light only to retreat when noticed. The sounds of the cemetery are equally unnerving. A nearby pond, long rumored to conceal mob victims during Chicago's criminal heyday, produces eerie splashes and ripples even on windless nights. Visitors report hearing faint footsteps on the overgrown paths, voices murmuring from between the trees, and the sudden cracking of twigs as if something unseen is moving just out of sight. Some have described the sound of phantom horses and carriages passing along non-existent roads, the clip-clop of hooves echoing through the woods, accompanied by the creak of wheels on invisible axles. These auditory experiences leave an unsettling impression, reinforcing the sense that Bachelor's Grove exists in a space apart from the everyday world. Visual phenomena are not limited to apparitions of people. Shadowy figures frequently dart between the tombstones, sometimes appearing solid enough to cast reflections in puddles of rainwater, only to dissolve into the night seconds later. Trees seem to bend unnaturally, branches twisting toward observers, and lights appear and disappear inexplicably among the dense undergrowth. Many witnesses report glowing orbs drifting silently above the cemetery, moving against the wind, hovering near graves, or following them along the narrow paths. The combination of sounds, shadows, and light creates an atmosphere that is simultaneously beautiful and terrifying, a place where the veil between life and death feels fragile and permeable. Some of the most chilling accounts involve direct encounters with ghostly figures. Visitors have reported seeing women in long, old-fashioned dresses wandering among the headstones, their feet never quite touching the ground. Children's laughter sometimes echoes faintly, though no one is present, and mournful whispers fill the air, speaking in tones that are almost, but not quite, human. Occasionally, figures appear to interact with the living, pointing, following, or even vanishing when approached. Those who experience such moments often describe a lingering unease, a feeling that the spirits are aware of their presence, and that some unseen force is observing, guiding, or testing them. Time itself seems to behave strangely at Bachelor's Grove. Visitors frequently lose track of hours, sometimes reporting that what felt like minutes in the cemetery stretched into much longer periods. Paths once walked suddenly appear altered. Familiar tombstones seem to shift, and the forest surrounding the cemetery feels alive with motion, though nothing can be seen. This sense of temporal distortion adds to the cemetery's otherworldly atmosphere, making it difficult to discern whether experiences are supernatural or simply the result of disorientation. Yet the consistency of reports over decades suggests that something unusual persists in the land itself. Despite its small size, the cemetery contains stories that span generations. It is said that mobsters use the pond for clandestine purposes, adding an aura of criminal mystery to the already haunting environment. Children buried long ago reportedly appear as faint shadows or glowing forms on foggy nights. Some graves seem to act as focal points for activity, drawing light, sound, or apparitions toward them, while others remain eerily still. The combination of history, tragedy, and natural isolation has made Bachelor's Grove a perfect storm for haunting, a site where energy from past events remains palpable to anyone willing to explore. Photographers, ghost hunters, and curious travelers continue to visit Bachelor's Grove, hoping to capture its elusive spirits or simply feel the chilling energy for themselves. Many leave with photographs of figures they cannot explain, with memories of sounds that defy logic, or with a profound sense of having glimpsed another realm. Others report an almost addictive curiosity, returning night after night, drawn by the unshakable sensation that the cemetery is alive with memory, watching and waiting. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery endures as more than a forgotten graveyard. It is a space with a living brush against the supernatural. The glowing woman on a tombstone, the phantom horses, the whispers in the trees, and a pond that hides untold secrets, all contribute to an atmosphere thick with history and mystery. Time, light, and perception twist within its borders, and those who enter feel the weight of the past pressing down alongside the spectral presence that lingers there. For decades, Bachelor's Grove has stood as a crossroads between this world and the next, a place where the spirits of the forgotten refuse to remain silent, where every shadow, splash, and glow serves as a reminder that some things in the Illinois woods are never truly at rest. In the heart of San Diego's Old Town, the Whaley House stands as both a museum and a monument to a past steeped in tragedy, mystery, and lingering spirits. Built in 1857 by Thomas Whaley, the house occupies a site already steeped in death, once a location of a public hanging for Yankee Jim, a man convicted of theft. Over the decades, the Whaley family suffered additional misfortunes, with several members die within the walls of the house. These overlapping tragedies have made the Whaley House one of the most famous haunted locations in the United States, a place where history, sorrow, and the supernatural converge. Visitors to the Whaley House often report an unsettling awareness that the past has not entirely left. Walking through the creaking wooden floors and ornate rooms, it is easy to feel the weight of lives lived and lost within the house. Tour guides frequently point out areas of activity, yet guests often report experiences that cannot be anticipated or explained. Shadows flit across hallways, objects seem to move on their own, and the air carries whispers of conversations that ended long ago. The house is alive with memory, and those who step inside often feel as though they are walking alongside the past rather than merely observing it. One of the most enduring spirits associated with the house is that of Yankee Jim. Though he was hanged decades before the Whaleys ever moved in, his presence is said to linger on the property. Guests and staff alike have reported seeing a shadowy figure pacing the hallway or standing silently in the doorway, watching all who enter. Some claim to feel a cold draft as he passes, an icy presence that seemed to occupy the same space as the living yet remains untouchable. Others have reported a sense of unease that cannot be attributed to the old architecture or the natural creaks of the building, a palpable reminder of the violence that occurred on the site. The house is also filled with echoes of the Whaley family themselves. Children's laughter, once a sign of joy, drifts faintly through rooms long since closed to the public. Visitors report hearing piano music from rooms where no instrument has played in decades, or the faint scent of perfume drifting through empty hallways. Some claim to have glimpsed figures of women in period dress gliding across floors or appearing from windows, vanishing when approached. These phenomena give the impression that the family refuses to let their beloved home fade entirely from memory, lingering as caretakers of their own history. Certain rooms in the Whaley House have become focal points for reported activity. The front parlor, once a place of family gatherings and social visits, is frequently cited for sudden temperature drops and unexplained sounds. The dining room has been known to produce the faint clinking of silverware, as though a meal is still being served to unseen diners. Upstairs, bedrooms and hallways reveal occasional flickers of movement or shadow, as if former inhabitants are pacing, watching, or performing their daily routines long after death. Guests often describe these encounters as disorienting and vivid, leaving a lasting impression that the house itself is aware of their presence. Photographs taken within the Whaley House have sometimes captured anomalies that defy rational explanation. Blurred figures, Faint outlines of people where none should exist, and shadows with impossible proportions appear in images, reinforcing the house's reputation for paranormal activity. Some investigators suggest these occurrences are residual energy, echoes of intense emotion and trauma replaying within the structure. Others contend that the spirits of Yankee Jim and the Whaley family may still inhabit the home consciously, interacting with those who enter, asserting their presence across the decades. The history of the house adds depth to the haunting. Thomas Whaley built a thriving family home and business, yet his family endured sickness, accidents, and untimely deaths. His daughter Violet died young, his son Thomas Jr. met a tragic end, and other family members experienced misfortune within the same walls that now welcome curious visitors. This accumulation of personal tragedy, layered atop the pre-existing horror of Yankee Jim's execution, has created an environment where sorrow, death, and lingering attachment converge. Even the modern-day museum experience cannot mask the Whaley house's uncanny energy. Visitors report feeling watched, hearing unexplained footsteps on the stairs, or encountering cold spots that defy the building's natural airflow. Some speak of furniture subtly shifting, doors opening or closing without human intervention, and whispers that seem come from just out of earshot. These occurrences often leave guests questioning whether the house preserves history in a conventional sense, or whether it preserves the spirits themselves. Walking through the Whaley house is an exercise in stepping into the past, yet the past is not silent. It walks alongside you in the hallways, lingers in the corners, and occasionally reaches out through sounds, shadows, or sensations that cannot be dismissed. Yankee Jim, the Whaley children, and other family members seem to maintain a presence, a refusal to be forgotten, a continuation of life and death within the walls they once called home. The Whaley house endures as a unique intersection of history and the supernatural. Its well-preserved rooms and artifacts provide a glimpse into 19th century life, yet the persistent paranormal activity reminds visitors that tragedy and memory do not easily fade. From the shadow of Yankee Jim pacing the hallways to children's laughter echoing in closed rooms. From the scent of perfume to unseen piano music, the house continues to hold its stories and its spirits alive. For those who enter, it is more than a museum. It is a living testament to the enduring presence of the past. A place where the Whaley family refuses to let their home fade, and where the line between life and death feels impossibly thin. And so, dear traveler, our long journey through America's 25 most feared paranormal hotspots comes to an end. From desolate prisons, to flickering lighthouses, lonely hotels, to blood-stained homes. Every place we visited tonight carries a heartbeat from the other side. These are not merely stories told to frighten. They are echoes of pain, of love, of unfinished moments that refuse to rest. For every chill in the air, every whisper in the dark, and every flickering shadow in your peripheral vision, remember, somewhere, someone once stood exactly where you are and felt the same cold breath on their neck. If you ever find yourself near one of these places, pause for a moment, listen to the silence,